Just sit by me after all. You got it worked out. Good. Okay.
You can find either one or all of them.
We need to order now, if that's okay. I would like to call to order the November 16, 2021 meeting of the West Palm Beach Planning Board. Madam Clerk, if you kindly call the roll.
Stephen Mance.
Present.
Peter Pivko. Deborah Range.
Present.
Andres Perdello. Let the record reflect that Andres Perdello is not present. John Higginbotham.
Here.
Kathleen Ward. Let the record reflect that Kathleen Ward is not present. Henry Smokler.
Here.
Carla Bryant.
Here.
All right, thank you. The next order of business is approval of the October 19, 2021 minutes. Are there any changes or corrections? And if not, may I have a motion for approval? Motion and
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? In favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next on our agenda is the report of the planning staff. Ms. Van.
Good evening, Chair and board members. Angela Van, Planning and Zoning Administrator.
Ms. Van, if you could speak more in the
Okay,
microphone, we're
there
barely
you go.
hearing you.
I'm sorry. I was trying to. Yeah. These are the list, the cases that's been heard by the City Commission since your last planning board meeting. This case was heard at the November 1st, 2021 meeting. Commission approved it by a 5-0 vote. And you heard it at your August 17th meeting, where you approved it by 7-0. This is Flamingo Car Wash. We call it Car Wash 2 on Executive Center Drive, just south of Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard. It was designed like a flamingo. Remember the one we originally approved on Belvedere? So it's just the second one, and the commission did approve this site for a car wash. Next items were heard at the November 15th City Commission meeting, and the commission approved it by a 5-0 vote. The first case was heard on your June 15th planning board meeting, and you approved it by a 4-0 vote. And the second case was planning board August 17th, and you also approved that one by a 7-0 vote. This was the community residents where the city took the existing group home regulations and put them in community residents. The three areas to come into compliance with the ADA and Fair Housing Act. And then BJ's major amendment to the BrandSmart site, which allowed the construction of a BJ's, about a 13,000 square feet. BJ's right here. And this is basically how it was gonna look. And one that Rick reminded me, and I don't know how I forgot this one. CMUT. I'm not quite sure how I forgot all the work we did on that. CMUT was approved by the City Commission by a 5-0 vote on Monday night. One of the significant changes that staff did after meeting with that, the neighborhood and discussions, the maximum height for Core 1 went to 350. So, and that's basically the areas around Jeff Green to property around Northwood Road, and basically just to the north and south of that. So staff did change that, so that's 350. Everything else was 303, and then everything else stayed the same, what was in the original code. So that's the major change that we came to with the good compromise between staff and the owners and the neighbors, even though they may not have been happy, but it was a good compromise. So, and that concludes staff's presentation.
All right. Any questions of staff? And Ms. Hope, if you can kindly note for the record that Mr. Paradella has joined us.
Yes, also
As-
Kathleen Ward.
All right, and we have another as well, Ms. Ward. Okay, so we have a full complement. All right, next on the agenda is the report, I think next is the remarks by the chairperson, of which I have none. That moves us to the declaration of ex parte communications. And let me begin by disclosing on planning board cases number 1899 A and B, I met with Joe First, a principal with Place Projects. None of my communications with him will prevent me from deciding the cases solely based upon the evidence presented this evening. Are there any other disclosures to make? And let me start on this side.
On the same case, 1899A and B, I also had a conversation with Joe First, and none of those conversations will have any impact on my vote.
Thank you.
I had the same communications with you first, and none of those communications will impact my decision.
I had an email, but I did not have a chance to respond.
Okay.
I had a conversation with Joe First regarding cases 1899 A and B. My decisions will be based on the facts presented tonight.
Thank you, sir.
I had no ex parte communications on this.
I have nothing to disclose.
I have nothing to disclose. I do have a question, though, for the attorney, since we have a full house here.
Yes.
That, as an alternate, I believe I do not have the ability to vote on anything.
That's correct, but you fully participate in the proceedings.
Yeah.
So you can participate, ask questions, engage in the discussion, but not have a vote with everyone present.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next on our agenda are continued cases, of which there are none, and that will bring us to Planning Board Case Number 111ZZ. Would everyone who plans to speak or offer testimony this evening please stand up to be sworn in? This is for all the cases, whoever plans to offer any testimony this evening. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to be giving in this proceeding will be truthful? I do. All right, thank you. You may be seated. And I believe we're going to first hear from Tyler Smythe.
Good evening. For the record, I'm not Taylor, I'm Joni Brinkman with Urban Design Studios. I just wanted to briefly go over what we're requesting, and then Taylor Smythe from the university is going to give you a brief overview of where they're at right now, why we are here with this request, which is a major amendment to the CSPD, the Commercial Plan Development, Community Service Plan Development for the university, to allow for a master signage program. And really the main purpose is to brand the university that's been such a great partner to the city over the years. So Taylor will go ahead and go over the gist of the presentation, and then I will come back in and get more technical with the conditions of approval as recommended.
All right, thank you.
Hello, I'm Taylor Smythe, Marketing Manager at Palm Beach Atlantic University. I'm also an alumnus of Palm Beach Atlantic, and
Excuse me, sir, would you mind speaking more
can you hear
directly
me?
to the
Yeah.
microphone? I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry, I don't know how close to be here. First time doing this. Yeah, Taylor Thomas Smythe. I'm the Marketing Manager, Palm Beach Atlantic. Just a little bit about PBA, if you are not familiar. Founded in 1968 here in West Palm Beach. So that's a little over 50 years now that we're celebrating, and that we've been kind of a staple of the downtown area, at the kind of south end of the downtown area. We're a faith-based private university of nearly 4,000 students. Our downtown campus covers 19.11 acres. We also have an additional Rinker Athletic Campus off Parker Avenue, which adds about 76 acres, which is not part of today's plan, as well as the satellite campus in Orlando and some online programs, just for some background. Neither of those are part of the plan we're talking through. So I'm going to go through the introduction, just rationale for our signage master plan. Kind of our first reason for doing this is just to increase public awareness of the university, expand awareness of PBA's presence in the community. We are one of the largest landowners in the city of West Palm, with our primary downtown campus encompassing 19.11 acres, as I just mentioned, and the athletic campus as well. PBA is also seen as an invaluable asset to the community. Since 1968, PBA students have contributed over 3.6 million hours of community service through our signature workshop program. An overwhelming majority of these hours have actually been served here in Palm Beach County and the city of West Palm Beach. And one of my colleagues shared with me earlier today that the mayor has even noted that we are the largest group of volunteers in the city, which is a distinct honor that we have. Additionally, the university contributes a positive economic impact of approximately $426 million per year in Palm Beach County alone. That's bringing jobs, visitors from visit days, parents that come to visit their students, students who spend and work and are employed in the area, alumni, et cetera. The other reason, kind of second reason that we are trying to do this plan is for wayfinding. Our campus is in the downtown area, which means unlike some other campuses where you might have a specific perimeter to the campus, a wall or a more obvious barrier, we're kind of just seamless with the downtown area. Many people will drive through and they'll say, oh, I didn't even know there was a college here. So trying to make that not happen as often. So establish comprehensive and consistent wayfinding across campus. All of our buildings currently feature standard postal addresses and building name signage, but we drastically improve wayfinding ability by adding additional large-scale branded signage. Such signage could also be themed for various events open to the PBA community and also to the public. Residents and employees of nearby condos and offices frequently patronize our food and dining venues, and downtown residents enjoy our public lectures and arts performances. Our goal is to help guide these guests in navigating our urban campus with greater ease. The third is a sense of place. We desire to create a sense of place and have clear campus boundaries, which is a recommendation of a campus master planning firm that evaluated PBA's campus in the last couple of years. As the campus is open and located in an urban area, there's an added need to make our boundaries clearer to our students, employees, and guests. Like I already kind of mentioned this, that just unlike other universities, we don't have those barriers. And we're surrounded by and interlocked with property and buildings that are owned by other organizations and companies, churches, right up there along Flagler. So sometimes it's difficult for guests to know when our land ends and another's begins. Large-scale signage and branding will instantly elevate awareness of campus boundaries. Hospitality is really important to us. We desire to offer better hospitality to visitors to the campus and the area by creating specific moments of welcome and orientation throughout the guest experience. I think it's the last one, or second to last. School spirit. Creating large-scale branded signage will allow us to kind of just further our messaging, branding, mission, values, theme, that sort of thing. Again, we're a fairly young institution compared to other institutions, just over 50 years. So this is an important part of continuing to grow. Lastly, matching quality of programs. We have many highly acclaimed programs at both the undergraduate and graduate levels here in West Palm, and we desire to elevate the look of campus to match the quality of the programs we're offering. One example, our prestigious scholarship program started 4 years ago, has produced 8 U.S. Fulbright scholars just in the last 4 years who serve across the globe, validating PBA's academic prowess. And 5 years ago, our Rinker School of Business began to pursue the highest accreditation possible, AACSB, which will put PBA in the top 5% of business schools in the world. And we're close to finishing that process, which is exciting. So just kind of wrapping up those parts before I get into just running quickly through what the specific proposals are. We're just grateful to be part of the West Palm Beach community and a contributor to everything that's happening here. And we do love West Palm Beach. And the first, so I'm just going to go through a few types of signage that we're proposing, and I'll kind of go quickly through the specifics as you all have the report with the greater detail, so I won't spend too much time on that. Light pole banners, this is kind of our first obvious one that we wanted to add throughout all of this, the areas that are our campus. So these will not be placed on poles that we don't own. So these are for PBA-owned light poles specifically. These will be, durable, your standard double-sided print banners and hardware that can withstand, the weather, the elements. Dimensional heights, there's kind of a few different types of poles and heights on our campus. So there's these 15-foot pole, 22-foot pole, and 30-foot pole approximately. And so our kind of proposal is to stagger them like this as far as the heights as visualized there. These are kind of a map of the spots where we were proposing to put these and have these scattered around campus. The pink outline indicates what are the boundaries of our property. So just kind of some examples of poles across campus, just kind of mocked up. This is not a final illustration, but just the types of things we're talking about: school spirit, logo, our values, motto, that sort of thing. The next is large branded signage. The first type of this is these SEG stretch frames, that's silicone edge graphics. All the details are here. High resolution dye sublimated graphic finished with a silicone gasket sewn into the graphic allows them just to be create a taut wall-like tension, but it's more of a canvasy cloth material and an aluminum frame. There's all the kind of details of breakdown there. And important to note that signage on any future construction will maintain the same materials and will follow the city's guidelines for facade area coverage to dictate allowable signage surface area. Other type of sign, aluminum pole and panel signs. These are aluminum posts. Hanging vinyl banners, These are made for indoor or outdoor use and will be secured securely. This is a map of where some of these types of signage are being proposed across our campus. The green complex, some signage here. Again, I won't spend too much time on these, just kind of flip through them. This is on our Lasseter Student Center on a very interior wall. This is on the sidewalk on campus. The aluminum pole and panel sign will help guide students from our parking lot to the admissions office, which is kind of not really an obvious journey, so this will help them with wayfinding. A hanging banner, also kind of at the next step of that journey to welcome them into the building where the admissions office is housed. This is another stretch frame on the side of one of the residence halls, also above the admissions area to kind of help indicate where that space is. Excuse me. Some other smaller signage at the entry to that same building. This is the north side of the Warren Library. The original proposed size here, we have downsized it, which we'll get to later when Joni shares, based on staff recommendation. Just want you to know that. And this one is on the west face of the Warren Library. These are all the stretch frames. Next thing that we're really excited about, it's still really early, so we don't have a lot to show yet, but it's a Sailfish Statue. The sailfish is our mascot. We have this fountain at the corner of Flagler and Okeechobee that has been unoperational for many years, and the goal would be to kind of turn that into more of a feature, iconic, tasteful monument featuring a sailfish, which is our mascot. We'll contract a professional artist to craft that. And lastly, mural style signage. We have this residence hall that is one of our older buildings, and just to kind of beautify it with some sort of messaging, yeah, that'll just be kind of a fun school spirit mural. Yeah, that concludes my portion. Joni will share about the rest.
Thank you.
Okay, first of all, I do want to make clear that I'm just going to focus in on the staff proposed conditions of approval, of which we are in agreement with all of them, except for one that we would ask for some consideration by this board. So I'll briefly go over them. The first recommendation is to, prior to City Commission, incorporate various items into our master signage program and resubmit, which we will do. The first one is just simply to state that any permits that are required will be codified in our program, and we will, of course, apply for any building permit necessary. The size of the signs the stretch signs would be required to comply with the signage requirements of the code, which we are agreeing to, and we will amend that specific graphic with the resubmittal. This is the one that Taylor had spoken about, that staff had some concern about the size. So we will be proposing and including in the resubmittal that we will be decreasing the size of the sign from, we previously had 20 by 30 feet. We'll decrease it to 15 by 15, which is 225 feet, well below the amount of sign-faced area that facade still qualifies for under your code of 396. So we will address that with the resubmittal. The murals, of course, we will need to follow whatever process is in your code prior to constructing or having an artist do the actual application of the mural. And we're in agreement with that, and that'll be included in the resubmittal, as well as the fact that the banners and the hardware will not be allowed to extend into the right-of-way, and that'll be incorporated as well. The one thing that we did want to speak to you about was some flexibility potentially on the location of the actual banners on the higher poles. This is what we had originally proposed, which would mean that the smaller poles, 15 feet, the banner, the lower edge of the banner would be required to be at least 8 foot off of the grade to provide for safe pedestrian access back and forth. But we were asking for some flexibility on higher banners on the higher light poles of 15 feet from grade on the 22, and actually it should have said 20 from grade on the 30 foot. And staff is recommending that all the poles have consistent banner heights. And we would like to request some consideration, really due to the impact of various landscape material that we're required to put in our parking lots in different areas, and the obstruction of visibility from the banners in certain instances. So you see here where if we place them, they would be blocked from part of the view in the parking lot areas. By allowing some flexibility, at least on the higher poles, perhaps from 8 foot to 15 or 8 foot to 20, we would be able to, over time, reposition the banners to accommodate the growth in trees or landscape material that is actually obstructing the visibility of the banner. So that is what we would propose for your consideration, that all the poles have at least a separation of 8 foot from grade to the bottom of the banner, but the 22-foot poles be allowed to go up to 15 feet from grade at the bottom of the banner, and that the 30-foot poles be allowed to go up to 20 feet from the grade to the bottom of the banner. And again, that allows for some flexibility on the bigger poles to adjust the location of the banners over time due to visibility impacts of landscape. Recommendation number 6, the staff had some concerns about, there was one pole that wasn't functioning, to remove that from the program, which we will do. We have actually reflected that on this diagram here. Reduce the number of the small poles along right here in front of the library. We had quite a few there. We have reduced them down to a maximum of 4, and that will be included in the resubmittal. And there was a medium pole on Acacia that was actually in the right-of-way and wasn't on campus proper. That was an oversight, and that is being removed as well as recommended by staff, and will be included in our next resubmittal. So that concludes our presentation.
Okay.
If you have any questions, it's really just the
Let me
one
start on this
flexibility
side.
we're looking
Carl,
for.
any questions? John?
No questions.
Andre?
No questions.
Peter?
Tony, I have a question. Can you explain the rationale for the reduction of the signage?
On the wall signage?
Yeah.
That was to be consistent with code. Code calculates the amount of square footage of sign face area based on your overall square footage of facade. So we just agreed to go ahead and be consistent with what the code would allow other users in different situations.
And also about the reduction of the poles?
The poles themselves aren't actually being reduced. What we're requesting.
The last slide you had.
Okay. This one?
One more. The overall map.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Item 1.6.2.
Yes, okay. On the original proposal that's included in your staff report, there were more signs of the blue, shorter color along in front of the library here.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than have every pole have the ability to have banners, staff had requested that we reduce that area down to a maximum of 4. And we're okay with that. We did.
But that's what you're showing, in other
Yes,
words.
yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Deborah, any
No
questions?
questions.
Kathleen? Okay. Henry? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's see. John, if we could hear from you, please.
Good evening. For the record, John Roach, Principal Planner for the city. As you saw in the staff report, staff doesn't have any objection with regards to the proposed request, subject to the conditions that were contained within there, which the applicant went through thoroughly and explained. I just do want to discuss with regards to the rationale that we had put in place with regards to the height of the banners.
Mm-hmm.
The concept behind that was to provide some level of uniformity across all the signage or all the banners across the campus. In addition to, I mean, we typically see banners as being more of a pedestrian scale in terms of signage and, you know, as you're walking down the sidewalk or what have you. The other concern was with regards to the taller signs. One is high freestanding signs are actually prohibited within community service plan developments. I mean, they could obviously request that as part of this, and therefore they have. However, we'd like to maintain some consistency with regards to the existing code. I think you saw that with regards to limiting the size of the square footage of the wall signage and so forth. So rather than allow what's more of a high freestanding sign, we suggested that the banners be dropped down. In addition to that, we understood the applicant's concern with regards to obstructions, the existing landscaping and so forth. We're happy to work with the applicant and look at those specific instances It could just be a matter of which direction or rotating the angle of the banner to avoid the tree and so forth. But one thing to consider is that the higher the banner is, the further away you have to be in order to see it, especially if you're driving down the public thoroughfare. You know, in order to see a banner that is 30 foot tall, you got to be a substantial distance away, as your viewing angle is limited based upon, where you're placed in the car and so forth. The closer you get, the steeper of an angle you have to look up, and therefore it makes it that much harder to see. So, I think as the banners get taller, you're going to actually have some additional obstacles, further away, whether it be buildings, other trees, or what have you, that will impede the ability to see that. So that's kind of the rationale between where we were coming from with regards to that condition. Say we're happy to work with the applicant, prior to city commission, but we feel like providing this uniformity and pedestrian scale would be more appropriate. So that concludes staff's
All right,
presentation.
any questions of staff? Let me start on questions. John, any questions? Andre? Peter?
John, when I look at the light poles, the consideration that I have is lighting. Obviously, if you have a banner 20 feet down from the source of the light, it's not going to be very bright. And to me, the rationale of moving the signage closer to the light source makes them visible and readable. So that's why my concern is about a generality like that.
Okay.
Understood.
Deborah? Okay. So what you're proposing, as I understand it, if we were to agree with staff on this, that you would still work with the applicant. For example, let's say there were a tree there and it may need to be 2 feet higher. You might accommodate that if we were to otherwise support staff recommendations.
If you're not supporting staff's recommendation as it is written, I'm happy to take direction from the board to work with the applicant.
No, but I just want to make sure I understood what you were offering. I don't want to put words in your mouth, make sure I understood it. So let's say we're supportive of staff recommendations. I thought what I heard you say is we would work with the applicant, though, on a sign-by-sign basis. So if, for example, there was one particular sign and it needs to be 2 feet taller so it's not obstructed with a tree, rather than have them cut the tree, that you might work with them. Is that what you were offering?
It's staff's preference that the conditions stay as is.
Understood.
However, if it is the desire of the board not to take that hardline approach, but not necessarily grant them their full request of what they're asking for, yes, staff is happy to look at those specific instances and so forth.
Are you open to that?
Certainly, yes.
Make you an offer.
Yeah, we're trying to negotiate here a little bit. All right.
No, I mean, staff's preference for the reasons outlined here are as it's currently written.
Understood.
But, we will hear the advice of the board and proceed from there.
All right. Peter has another
John,
question.
I mean, as well detailed a study this is, what happens, there's going to be some changes between the implementation, or maybe additional signs. How are those handled if they, for example, want 1 or 2 additional signs?
And we can have that conversation. It really hasn't come up yet with regards to that. They haven't proposed anything as far as, the way it was outlined to us within the application is these are the locations in which they're proposing to do it. If that's the hard line that is written within the master plan as it is that they would have to come back for an amendment. If the applicant wants to propose some type of leniency within there, rather it be additional signs and so forth, that would have to be incorporated within the master plan, but that was not proposed to us. And just to give you an idea of why we've been okay with what they're proposing is that pretty much everything that they've proposed to you is internal to their campus and isn't necessarily impacting outside their boundaries. A lot of the banners are along their pedestrian walkways, aren't necessarily the public right-of-way that everybody else would use. Those instances where they were along the perimeter, such as the east side of the Warren Library and so forth, we propose to restrict the number there so it's more in line with what the current code would allow them. So we tried to limit on the perimeters, but allow them flexibility to do what they want internally.
But my question was, does the staff have the approval right to approve 1 or 2 extra signs, or would it have to come back?
As it is currently written, no, staff does not have that.
All right, thank you. Any other questions of staff? If not, would anyone from the public wish to be heard on this matter? And then we'll bring them back to the board for discussion. So what are your thoughts here?
I think I had the same kind of inclination that maybe you were headed towards, which is giving some kind of, some kind of leeway to have staff work with the applicant on specific signage, and not have to come back to this board or other boards for further approval. So that was my inclination as well.
You're nodding your head in agreement? Okay. And Deborah, what are your thoughts? Okay. Peter, are you a flexible guy or no?
Yeah. I'm flexible, but like I said, I may want to amend the motion to give the staff and the applicant a little leeway in terms of the number of signage. And I also, in agreement with the applicant's position regarding item 1.5.
Okay. Andre, your thoughts?
I'm on board with, giving them some flexibility and some leniency on adding signs or making them a little bigger, whatever, extending them, making them a little bit closer to the source of light. All makes sense, so.
Okay. John, your thoughts?
Well, I think the idea of a uniform sign program is a great idea. It's going to visually tie the campus together. But I think it's a lot of signs. So, and a lot of banners. I think when you put banners up higher and the wind breaks one on the bottom, it's going to take a longer time to get that banner repaired, and it's going to flap in the wind, and visually that's going to be a problem. I think when the banners are closer to the ground and more uniform, they're easier to maintain and replace and change out. I'm inclined to support the staff position. I think that consistency from a banner standpoint, there's lots of dots on that diagram. And I think we should give it a go, see how it works, and if we need to tweak it later, we can come back, but it's a lot of signs up front. So let's stick with what the staff is recommending. That would be my position.
Thank you. Carla?
I think a lot of the signage is internal, to the campus. I would allow some flexibility and on a sort of sign-by-sign, case-by-case basis. If I were voting.
Still have influence. And just add my thoughts to this too. What we're saying, John, here is that we have a lot of confidence in staff. And therefore, that we're confident that on a case-by-case basis, if there's some adjustment needed, we entrust the staff to do that. I also like the idea, should there be a desire for another sign, it doesn't have to come back here. I like your suggestion that, again, we trust staff to the extent we're allowed to entrust you, if they want to come with another sign, to give you the discretion to handle that without necessarily coming before us again. You want to respond?
If I may, I
Of
can
course.
have a little bit of a proposal.
Hey.
We don't have an objection to that. That wasn't included within the scope within there, but understand the need that may arise with regards to that. So staff's amenable to exploring the option that anything that is internal to their campus, as we talked about before, could potentially be done at a staff level. But anything that affects the outer perimeter and therefore visible to the greater community, if they want to exceed beyond what the master plan allows, that they would have to come back before as a major amendment and therefore before the board.
What do you all think of that offered compromise? Make sense?
It makes
Yeah.
sense.
I think the only question would be like, what does external mean in that context? Like,
Can you explain what you mean when you use
only
the
because,
term?
kind of, if anywhere along a border
I think
of
it
a
would be,
street
if it's
versus-
visible beyond the boundaries, and you saw on the master plan, the perimeter of their development. I can bring that back up.
Yeah.
And I'm more talking about the greater perimeter, not necessarily each individual block, but, their entire campus as a whole. That anything with all, for example, along South Olive Avenue or Okeechobee Boulevard or South Flagler or South Dixie, those roadways, any modifications to signage along that are visible from those roadways would have to come back before the board. But if they want to add additional banners internal to their pedestrian network, that goes amongst their various buildings, mid-block and so forth, then, we think the impact of those is minimal, especially to people outside the university.
Yeah, if I could quickly comment, I'm actually very familiar with the campus, and there are challenges with wayfinding with that campus, so I do think the signage is very important. I also think beautifying the buildings with murals also would, bring it into the 21st century. And I'm saying that in a nice way. But yes, I really think that's the best compromise. Anything that's external from, the four sides, Flagler, Olive, that kind of thing, bring it back to us. I think that's the best compromise.
I think we have consensus here. Is someone going to be bold enough to make the appropriate motion? Peter?
I'm just writing the second one.
Okay.
All right, I'll move approval of Planning Board case number 1111ZZ, conditions 1.1 through 1.6, and an additional condition 1.7 that would allow staff and the applicant to consider a plus or minus 10% variation on the number of signs. And staff is encouraged to work with the applicant to adjust certain sign heights, et cetera, except for the perimeter signs on campus.
Do you want to comment on that motion, John? I see a pained face even through your mask.
It was my understanding that the deviation at staff level would be with regards to the number of internal signs and so
Correct.
forth.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the height of signs along
No,
the
I
perimeter.
think we wanted,
Internal.
yeah, wait, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
But in terms of the height of it, there, a case by case, if there was some special need. Again, it'd be staff's decision. We just would hope that you work with the applicant.
So it's
That's
working with the applicant with regards to the height of the banners.
Right, on special places where that might be appropriate.
Right, and then the other one was to allow some flexibility, you indicated 10%,
Yeah.
with regards to internal signage
Internal signage
on the
only.
campus.
Correct.
Okay?
Okay, so the pain's gone. All right. We have a motion. Have we a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. I think it was a great project. Wish you success with it. All right, that then brings us to Planning Board case number 1887. Please proceed.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and board members. Thank you for the opportunity on behalf of KB Development and their development partners, Blue Road Development. And our team, we're excited to present this very dynamic and exciting project to you this evening. I've just got 17 slides for you. We'll go through the property location, a little history.
Excuse me, sir. Forgive us.
No problem.
Procedure matter, our issue.
I just have to state a quick conflict. I supported this project previously at an event that they held in September 2021 in my neighborhood, so I have to recuse myself from the vote. But I
is
can
that,
still listen. I just wanted to
Mr.
keep that in
Thomas?
before you started talking.
Where are you, my friend? Where did they put you? Over here.
Hiding.
Oh, you look protected down there. Did you hear her thing? Is she required to recuse herself? Can you repeat it for him?
So they had an event held at the property, and they had a signing for support, and I signed in support of the project. So I just didn't know if that was I checked in earlier with Hope, and that we thought that might be a conflict, so I wanted to present it before they started presenting.
Your question, which you would have to decide, is whether you can be fair and objective and make your decision solely on what's presented here, as opposed to what you may have heard in the.
I don't want to tread on that note, because I've learned a lot about this project, and like I said, I already signed in support prior to this, so I don't.
So her answer is no, she
Yeah,
can't be.
I don't feel comfortable.
All right. But
So-
then, Mr. Thomas, then it's appropriate then for her to recuse herself?
That is, yes, it is.
Okay, all right.
So just as a point of order,
Only woman.
Yeah.
In?
I think you
Okay.
sit back
so
now.
just as a point of order, does that mean that then I can vote on this
That's correct.
particular? Oh, well, yay. Okay.
Going to rip up your support letter.
Okay, you lost one there, John, but go ahead.
Again, 17 slides. We're going to go through the location, a brief history, our request, architecture, the justification standards, our timeframes and public outreach, and then any Q&A. The location of the property is 4708 and through 4714 North Flagler Drive, between 46th and 47th Streets. It's 1.73 acres, 1.43 of upland, and 0.51 of submerged lands. They're highlighted in the blue. If you haven't been past the site, it's currently vacant and fenced. Obviously, we have direct access to the east, to the intercoastal. To the west is single-family and multifamily. To the south is multifamily, and then to the north is one single-family residence. The property currently has an approval on it that's still valid through some of the time extensions of hurricanes and COVID. It was a 5-story, 28 multifamily unit with a first floor all-in parking and then floor levels of residential above it. Not too inspiring of architecture, but that's what's approved on the plan and met all the standards. Our request is to rezone the property from MF32 to a residential plan development with 55 condominium units, which is 21 stories. It's a 5-story parking garage, the podium, that's 16 floors above are residential, and 175,300 square feet. Our original application included a dock and a waiver for a dock. We have hence removed that. We've had to go through seagrass studies, Army Corps, South Florida permitting before we can submit to staff. So if this moves forward, we may be in front of you in the future to ask for a dock. But it's not part of the application tonight. We are also asking for 4 waivers, which is the minimum acreage for an RPD. One section of the code requires 10 acres, another section requires 2, or 1.73, so I don't meet either one. We're asking for a maximum building height of over 40 feet to 244. We're asking for our submerged lands to count in our density, which you can do as part of the plan development. And our internal driveway separation, it's a very narrow lot, 125-foot separation between driveways, and we're at 80. This is a rendering of the site. This is if you can see my puck on the screen, this is the 1-story, or it's actually 2-story, single-family residence to the north. To the south, we have 2-story multifamily here, and then to the west, we have a mix of single-family and multifamily. The main access is off North Flagler Drive. We have a one-way circulation on site, and which you'll see further. You enter in here as a resident. As a guest, you enter in under the valet. So we have 24-hour security and 24-hour valet. So you'll park here, and they'll run your car up. The project is parked over additional 40 over code, so we wanted to make sure that we were not going into the neighborhood. That's been an issue for some other projects, and parking on 47th and 46th Street into the neighborhood, and made sure we were clearly parking within our property. This is the podium with the 6th floor amenities, which is the sunset deck. You've got the massing of the structure here that we'll see on the architectural plans, and then our sunrise deck. And alba means first light, and so that would be our first light. This is the proposed architecture. So on the left side, you're seeing the proposed 21-story building. It's on top of a 5-floor podium, or 5 floors of parking garage and our podium with additional 16 floors above that. This is the view from the street, which the residents have had a lot of input over the last year on the design and operation of this. A view from one of the residential units from above, and then this is our 6th floor amenity deck looking eastward.
I feel like jumping in the pool.
The proposed development, these are the 4 waivers, which are really kind of in the tabular data, and then this is the separation. We don't have two-way drives. Working with staff, the fire department, as well as trash, we were able to reduce this down to one-way drives, narrow those cuts, and create additional green space out here. This is the guest drop-off here. This was a resident drop-off, and they would proceed into the 5-story parking garage and then exit out this way. And the reason for the RPD and the waivers is to encourage, through incentives and design techniques, a more desirable, attractive development. This is a very unique property configuration. It's a very narrow lot with only 150 feet of frontage on North Flagler and down to 100 feet on the waterfront. The location that we've been working with the neighborhood on and pushing the building back away from the historic neighborhood it lessens the impact on the historic community. The massing has less impact. The height over a larger area and shading would be problematic if you had to spread this out. The height, I want to point out the height that we're asking for is not prohibited at all. It allows us to internalize our vehicular impacts and it's also in development, or encouraged infill development. Some positive impacts: it's going to be a $100 million investment in the community. It's residential ownership versus rentals. There will be 30 to 40 permanent jobs at this property. Increased tax base. It's setting a very high elevated design standard for others to follow. We have active uses and 24-hour staffing on the ground floor and in the neighborhood. It's going to be 402 jobs over the next 4 years. And it's going to promote, an expansion of goods and services in the north area. So I think this is going to promote additional commercial development along the Dixie corridor. There's additional community commitments that I'll talk about later on in the presentation. Based on the neighborhood feedback and some of our design changes have been, the neighborhood feedback, it became a tiered building with expanded front setbacks. So we were able to push the building back 26 feet, creating more green space into the community. The tower was pushed back to 127 feet from the roadway, again, trying to make it more compatible with the neighborhood. It also provided additional green space into the neighborhood, a prominent location for our art and public places. And this was a walk that we worked on along the pedestrian path here. It's an additional walk that goes into the property. There's seating there, so if you're out walking, walking your dog, taking a jog, you don't feel comfortable, you can go on this little pathway, have a seat. There'll be valet or security right next to it in those blue areas. We narrowed the driveways. We internalized our parking. We internalized our trash, and we're undergrounding all the utilities. In terms of the architectural stack, the cross-section here is, on the left side is going to be a view directly from Flagler looking east, and then the right picture is a cross-section from west to east, the Flagler Drive being there in the middle. So our drop-off there highlighted in the purple, our stack of parking, 5 stories. Along the east, there are 4 residential townhomes, so they're directly on the waterfront. Our 6th floor amenity deck, and then 13 floors of residential tower above that. The units range from about 1,900 square feet to almost 4,900 square feet, a wide range of 2-bedroom with dens, 3 bedrooms with dens, and 4 bedrooms with dens. So they're quite spacious and expensive product. I want to point out some of the architectural massing and the height. So this is a vision, obviously, from the street, and we were very aware and conservative when we did this design with the neighborhood to make sure that it was appealing and working into the community. So if we look in this aerial map from east to west, you're seeing the Marina Village, which has approved 30 stories, 400 feet, and about 6 buildings directly to our south. We are here in the middle with 21 stories and 244 feet, and the Placido Mar, 26 stories just to our north. This is a view at the bottom from west to east. Palm Beach House up at 30 stories, the Placido Del Mar, us in the middle again, and then the Marina Village. So I think that we're contextually very compatible to what you're seeing down through this corridor and in the MF32 zoning. The standards and justification for the waivers, the amendment standards per section 9432, items A through H, and section 9435, items 1 through 14, as outlined in our October 22nd justification statement and the city's planning department's professional staff report, and part of this record. The project complies with all the standards. Staff is recommending approval. Owner's agreement with all 14 conditions, as well as there's additional community commitments. And these can't be put into the conditions, but we are committed to the residents as we did some of these meetings. And one of the problems there, highlighted in blue, is there is a boat channel that everybody's having trouble navigating. It's filled in a little bit, and the developer has hired a marine engineer to do seagrass surveys out there, and at the minimum, permit marking this. So we can't really tell anybody how to drive their boat, but we think that it would be much more appealing, when you can't really see that well, that these are marked better and they'll help out. So he's committed to do that. If we can permit it, he's doing it, and he's hired the Charlie Eisminger to do that. We also committed to funding a 6-foot-high concrete panel wall or aluminum picket fence along the south property line of Osprey Park. That was a neighborhood concern. The gentleman, Carl Peterson, passed away that was working with this and part of Northwood Harbor. So they're not having another meeting till January, but we're committed to do this, whichever option that they want. And then they also wanted to make sure that they had access to our security video. If something would happen or they needed information, we will be very pleased to provide that to them. There's been considerable community outreach. We've been working on this about a year. January 5th, we had some concepts. We went to the neighborhood and got their feedback, redesigned it a couple times, and we submitted not until May. Then there was a follow-up with the ENCON and Northwood Harbor to show our progress and what changes we had done. We worked through staff's comments, and September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, there was a ice cream social on the site and food truck, and just to get residents introduced to the project. We've done 2 follow-up meetings with ENCON, and then just last night I had a meeting with the board. So if we proceed forward, there's the rest of our schedule. As part of that community outreach, the results that came out of that were addressing the front setback and the massing issue of the building, addressing the security concerns that are in the neighborhood, addressing the boat channel. We have a letter of support from our directly adjacent residents to the north, and we have over 200 letters of support that I will pass out when we proceed forward here. This is just a few of the letters. This was from one of the commercial owners in the area. The other one was our direct neighbor. And again, we have over 200 letters of support. I mapped those, with a concentration directly around the neighborhood, but other people did attend. And I'll pass this out, and we'll just go through a little support video. I'll be right back.
We loved it here. It was amazing.
I think it's going to be great for the neighborhood. It's a beautiful setup.
It's a really good project, and it's going to make a major difference to the community.
It was louder earlier.
We loved it here. It was amazing.
I think it's going to be great for the neighborhood. It's a beautiful setup.
It's a really good project, and it's going to make a major difference to the community.
I'm going to read them all for the record.
I think this condominium would really, really help this area a lot.
Well, I'll move on.
It looks like you silenced the dissenters. That's what I'm seeing.
Did Kathleen, did Ms. Ward do that? But on behalf of our development team, we're here to answer any questions this evening, and appreciate your support this evening if we can get it.
Okay, let's see.
Thank you.
Any questions? Start with you. Deborah, no? Peter?
I just want to clarify the building height for a second. The drawings you're showing, the massing study, show a building of 244 feet, but yet you're only requesting 235, 2 inches. Are we talking roof versus mechanical penthouse height?
There's a I can get Keith up here, but there's a parapet around there. So we wanted to make sure that we were covered on our height request around some of the equipment.
Okay, but so which one is the correct one?
The
244?
higher one.
Sorry?
The higher one.
244?
Yes, correct. 244, 2 inches.
Okay, so.
Okay. Andre?
No questions. Looks great.
John?
No questions.
Clara?
Just one question, and this might be more for staff. I was looking at the traffic study impact, and I know there's an exception with KREA and all of that. My only concern is that traffic impact, since it is still a residential, single-family home kind of community. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. I should have a slide for it. I thought it might come up. So 55 units. It's not that many units. We are in the coastal residential exemption area, so we're really exempt from traffic, but we went ahead and did a study. And the study was reviewed by Palm Beach County as well as the City of West Palm Beach. It was deemed insignificant from both those people, or both those agencies. It already has approval for 28 units on there. Obviously we're adding more, but when we look at the AM and PM peaks here, so the AM peak hour, which is your 7 to 9, it only has 4 inbound and 13 outbound. And then the PM peaks, the 4 to 6, has 12 inbound and 8 outbound. So it's really pretty minimal. It's not that many units when we compare it to the project directly to the south.
Yeah, okay. Actually, this was helpful. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Can we hear from staff?
Good evening. For the record, John Roach, Principal Planner for the city. The applicant covered everything in pretty good detail, so I won't go through all that, but just put on the record that staff is recommending approval of the application. It's our opinion that, oops. Wow, it's got a mind of its own. It's our opinion that it complies with Section 94-32 of the city's zoning and land development regulations as outlined in our staff report. It is subject to those conditions that we specified within there on pages 2 and 3, which the applicants agreed to. I'll get into a couple of the questions that just came up in just a second, but as a formality, with the waiver and the reduction in the land area that's required for a planned development, the city zoning and land development regulations, as you see on there, requires that there be a specific finding by the planning board and the city commission. And I believe the board attorney has provided a recommended motion for you that outlines that. And in essence, indicating that the benefits that can be derived from the planned development can be achieved on this smaller or lesser land area. But the zoning code does require that finding be made, and for those who have been on the board for quite a while, you know the history behind that. So just a matter of caution as you get into your motion that you'll need to address that separately. And then your second one will be with regards to the planned development and the associated waivers as a whole. So with regards to some of the questions that have come up, one was with regards to the height of the building. The way the city's zoning code defines the height is, in the case of a flat roof, is to the roof deck, which that's where the 235 feet and 2 inches comes from. We do allow an additional 10% above that for stair enclosures, mechanical equipment, parapets, and so forth, which they fall within that. So that's the reason staff reports put in there the 235, 2 inches. I understand their concern. I don't want the 244 to be derived where they can raise their roof deck to that 244 and then add an additional 10% beyond that. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page with regards to what's proposed and what they could proceed forward with. The other one was with regards to the traffic. The applicant, outlined the traffic study, just so you are aware, is that with the Marina Village project, there are a number of conditions associated with those residential units as those come online. So there will be improvements to Flagler Drive as part of that. There's the construction of a roundabout at 45th and Flagler. There's some signalizing changes with regards to 45th and Broadway and so forth to try and get traffic out of there. So this is kind of happening in conjunction with those improvements for other projects as well. So, but I'm happy to answer any questions or go into detail on any of the conditions or any of the other requests if you so desire. That concludes.
Any questions of staff? Are you comfortable with the height issue? I mean, I think the comparison with the other buildings was somewhat persuasive, but I'm curious for your thoughts on it.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the ways that we looked at it was in comparison to what's happening in the corridor and what's previously been approved, as well as some of the existing projects that have been there for several decades. Those further north from Flagler have been there quite a while and actually probably present more massing and more visibility issues than what's proposed in terms of the podium and the tower, in the central portion of the site. And the site presents a lot of constraints with regards to its configuration, and it's kind of that it's almost a reverse flag in the sense that, it has that wider portion on Flagler, but it really narrows as you get to the eastern portion of the site. So it really presented a lot of constraints, and therefore going vertical was a more desirable element. And with regards to context, desirable from the applicant standpoint, but with regards to context, you saw that skyline image. We felt like it was compatible, and the stepping back from the residential neighborhood was consistent with what we've done in some other projects that are adjacent to single family like that. So
I thank you for that.
May I ask a question on the same theme?
Of course.
No, thank you. For the past several meetings, we've had a lot of conversations about height. And just trying to get a read to understand how staff, when you're approached with these projects, the kind of deliberations that you go through, whether to support it or not. I mean, when I look at the aerial and I see a single-family home to the north and a two-story townhouse development and single-family homes across the other side, and the small lot, I see a massive building shoehorned onto a piece of property. I can see in the context of Flagler that we have spaced apart taller buildings. But in terms of what's immediately next door, this building isn't really consistent with what that neighborhood looks like right at that location. So I'm trying to, again, I brought this up at the last meeting about from a planning context, how do we look at these things, what's the vision? And maybe you could share with me a little bit of your deliberations, like if, for example, if they'd come forward with 300 feet and said, well, we want to do Rybovich Marina, it's just down the road, would that have been okay with staff? What is too much for us at this point, and at what point is it not going to meet the requirements for granting a waiver? Because it all seems very arbitrary, and it seems kind of like a beauty pageant and a popularity contest, whether the neighborhood supports it or doesn't support it. The decisions don't, it's hard for me to understand how the decisions are based on planning principles versus community issues and some just balancing of interests. So I'd like to hear from the staff how they come to the conclusions on these things, and would there be too much?
Well, I think it all comes down to, if you look at what's been approved in the past and kind of the direction in which the corridor has been going with regards to those projects. And then it's a matter of, in the case of this instance, looking at how does that specific, on a case-by-case basis, how does it fit in with the existing context as well as the projects that have been approved and proposed and so forth. I can't say that there is a definitive number at which we say yes or no. I think you saw with regards to the studies here that they were substantially less than, two of the existing projects that are on the site that have been there for a number of years, as well as substantially less, almost half, or approximately 3/4 of what was approved for the Marina Village. There's this effort to try and create this synergy in the north end with regards to numbers of people and spending power and so forth that would spur redevelopment and opportunities along the Broadway corridor and what have you. So that's kind of where we're looking at it from that standpoint. That's compatibility. You have to take a look at all of it. The one thing to take into consideration is that the property to the north is actually an anomaly in the sense that it's a single-family house in a multifamily zoning district. I mean, it could easily be redeveloped with a multifamily building. The property to the south is probably underdeveloped, if you look at today's standards. But so it's kind of looking at all of that as a whole in terms of whether this specific project is justifiable. The other thing is that the multifamily zoning district that it is today does not have a cap in terms of number of stories or number of feet. You could actually go, as tall as you could potentially go, provided that there would be the additional setback. The way the ratio works for MF is that you can have a 40-foot tall building by right, no matter what as long as you're meeting the minimum setbacks. But you can increase the height of that building, to the point at which,
as long as the lot's large enough and you can meet step it back and meet the setbacks.
Lot's large enough and you have the setback and so forth. And that's one thing to consider here is, the separation between this building and any of the other taller buildings is pretty substantial. So it's not like putting two high-rise buildings immediately adjacent to each other. So that's kind of where we look at it from.
I mean, I think it's a handsome project, and I think it's well designed for its site. It's just, especially on the in context of the conversation that we had last month, where staff didn't support the additional building height for Flagler Towers, and I guess there had been some direction from City Council or City Commission about what the maximum height was going to be in that area. Maybe that factored into that decision, but.
And that one, they took into consideration the, existing approved development and surrounding projects and so forth that have been constructed, and kind of determined that what was compatible was a particular height of a building, and the applicant in that circumstance was proposing to go above that. So that's the reason that it was requested to shorten the building slightly.
Well, thank you for taking time to answer my question.
Thank you, John. It was helpful. I have 3 cards from the public: a Louise Stoney, a Kim Barbary, and a Steve Allen. If you will come forward.
And just a matter for the public comment, as soon as everyone in the room has been addressed, I do have 7, I believe, voicemails that will need to be played. So I'll do that at the conclusion of
Thank you.
those in
Appreciate
person.
that.
So thank you.
Please state your name.
Good evening. My name is Louise Stoney. Thank you for letting me speak. Several of you I may look familiar to you because I've presented before this group before. In fact, I was here a month ago speaking in support of CMUD. And I am, as you heard me say last time I spoke, I am not opposed to tall buildings. In fact, I often support going up instead of going out. I need to tell you I'm strongly opposed to this proposal because they're doing both. They're going out, they're using every square inch of this property, and then they're putting a tower on top of it. It's completely inappropriate for the neighborhood. I'm looking at the chart that the staff prepared for the waiver request, and this to me is completely unreasonable. They're asking for residential plan development that would require 10 acres, and if you look north at CMUD, if you look north at Rybovich, they have big pieces of property. This is a tiny piece of property. They are cramming a huge building on a tiny piece of property. They're supposed to have 10 acres, they have not even 2. The height issue of 40 feet to 200, already discussed, got that. They're saying that they want to go from 39 units to 55 because they have, this one really gets me, they own land underwater, so they get to build more on the small, tiny property they have because they own land underwater. To me, that is completely unreasonable. Maybe legal, but it seems completely unreasonable. My biggest concern is the size of the building. And I also want to say this, when you pass zoning laws for 39 units, I assume that that units were about 1,000 square feet. These are huge condos. The square footage of this building is enormous. 4 swimming pools. There's going to be parties. This is enormous. Last point. I own a property right next door in that tiny little condo, right? David and Goliath. I'm seriously concerned that our condo, which is 50 years old, is going to have major disruptions of its foundation, of its plumbing, when they're pounding. It's 20 feet from my window to the wall of this enormous building. So at the very least, we need assurances that the integrity of our building will be protected and that we will not be put at risk. We're already struggling with a 50-year-old building. I see I have 30 seconds, so let me just say the last thing. There's a lot of talk here about community input. I live right next door. A lot of this is disingenuous. I was invited to one meeting where we were not shown these pictures. I only got these pictures because I called the city planning board and asked to see them. When there was this ice cream social, there were not pictures of this building. There was a little booklet telling you how beautiful these condos were going to be and how much money they were going to cost and how much they would improve our land values. We have not been provided with accurate information about what this building is going to do to our neighborhood, and I'm not happy about it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, Stephen Allen, 4700 North Flagler Drive. I have owned the property next door, a condo. And my whole thing with this is, whatever zoning says is allowed should be allowed. Special exceptions, yeah, with some kind of flexibility. But when you're talking about a 4-story building that turns into a 21-story building, you're changing the whole dynamic of the area. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Drive by the area and look at 46th Street in Flagler, 45th Street. That's worth 10,000 words. I don't have to say anything to you if you drive by there, because you'll see residential Old Northwood neighborhood. Let them do their development. Let them do it in the zoning code that it is. No problem. You have Marina Village, which, okay, it was approved. They're building tremendous things, and I don't know how the traffic will support that or anything. But in effect, if you approve this project at 21 stories on this little piece of land, you're opening the door to make this Fort Lauderdale, and everything from 35th Street or 45th Street, you're going to make it that it's not going to be single-family houses anymore. It's going to be high-story buildings, development, and welcome to Fort Lauderdale. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is Kim Barbary here? Barbary? There's a comment in the back. She says, prefer not to speak. Oh, there it goes. I am opposed to the rezoning of the scuba club parcel. All right. Is there anyone who wishes to talk who has not been given the opportunity? If so, please come forward now. Please. I tell you what, come forward, and then when you're done, you can put in a card afterwards.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me an opportunity to speak. I actually live at 4701, so right across the street from where this is being proposed. I am in complete agreement with what was just said by the last two people that spoke. I want to know where this 200 letters of approval came from. Were probably all signed by the people I saw being flagged in for free food on that 3-day food truck event. And I saw people that didn't own property in the neighborhood just coming in and just signing whatever paper and probably didn't even read it because they were getting free hamburgers and listening to music. While I'm sitting across the street, like, okay, why are these people signing approval for something that's going to affect me, not them? I only went to one meeting over at the Sailing Club, so I've only heard briefly about what the proposal is. I feel like I'm not getting enough information. And when I presented my concerns at that meeting, they were kind of brushed off. It is high family, single family homes in this neighborhood, including me across the street with my 2 young boys, trying to raise them in a neighborhood where I can let them ride down the street on their bikes, and now there's going to be a 21-story building across the street where I'm worried about higher density, population density, where there's going to be more cars, more traffic, and that I know that there's going to be changes to Flagler in order to accommodate for this. So we're talking about there's this really wide sidewalk that everyone in our neighborhood uses. It's for running, biking, walking your dogs, for the families in our neighborhood, and that's all going to change. And us including the roundabout at 45th Street, that's just going to, I know it's trying to alleviate the extra traffic in the area, but that's literally just going to speed up, right? That's the whole point, is a roundabout. People don't have to stop at a stop sign anymore, and we already have issues with people speeding down Flagler. So I just wanted to go on record tonight saying that we are opposed to this, that there is not this unanimous support in our neighborhood. There are single families that are not in agreement with this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. If you don't mind, please fill in the card too for us. Ma'am, if you don't mind, please fill in a card for us. Thank you. All right, I have a couple of additional names. Mary Ellen Mosca, if you could come forward, and Omar Randolph, forgive me. Either of those two people wish to be heard.
Thank you.
Evening. So as somebody that in 2002 got his scuba certification at the Scuba Club, I was slightly interested to see what was going to transpire with the project once it was torn down. And when I became a little bit more familiar with it, I want to say that I am really excited to see what is possible on that site. I think it's really a beautiful building, and I think they took a lot of care and due diligence and kind of doing the appropriate steps. I had a chance also to visit the community outreach event, and I thought it was great. There were a lot of smiling faces. I saw neighbors and people that were excited about the project, and they did have almost an identical representation of what I saw on the screen earlier as to what they were going to build. So,
Thank you, sir.
thank you for your time.
All right. Mary Ellen Moscow, do you wish to be heard? Please come forward, and then Nicole Ambler after her. I'm so sorry. That was the card I just got for you. All right, thank you. Appreciate you filling it out. Please come forward, state your name for the record.
Mariella Mosca.
If you come close to the microphone, ma'am, so we can hear you.
I agree with this development, this project. I think it would help the northern part of the city. It would help bring more development up there and even help maybe that part of the neighborhood, keeping it away from downtown. I kind of live more downtown, and I think just spreading it out a bit more would be beneficial.
Right, thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else wish to be heard? Please come forward. Have you given us a card, sir? I have not. Okay, why don't you speak, and if you could fill out the card after you do.
Will do. Thank you. My name is Ross Harness, and I live at 312 Northwood. I'm also a member of the Palm Beach Sailing Club that is just south of this development, and I'm also looking at buying property in one of the Northwood neighborhoods, but I am in support of this development. But I want to speak more generally about sort of development of this area and the coastline here. Marina Village is going up. There's this new development here. They're all coming here for variances on building heights and density. And there's tons of properties north of this development that are vacant and they're just grass and blighted and could also use development. I want to just suggest that the board has staff sort of look at, why don't we just rezone the whole thing so that we have to have less of these variances and waivers going on, but also build in some of this density. One of the previous commenters said that there was too much density, but a city thrives on density and having people using all of these amenities that this great neighborhood has. And these people can also go to Broadway, where there's a ton of economic activity going on. And with the Broadway reimagine of the street, I can only imagine it's going to get better. So I do approve this project, but I would also suggest that maybe we look at sort of rezoning some of the lots north of it so that we get even more development instead of just grass along the coastline. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to be heard? And if not, John, if you come forward, sir. Have you completed a card?
I have not. I thought.
Okay, you can do it
online,
afterwards if you go ahead and speak. Go ahead.
My name's Sean Geyer. I'm the silent guy with the beard on the video. I actually do ardently support this. I also own Pescatory Restaurant on the southern edge of the Northwood CRA. I think my motivations as a business owner for supporting are relatively transparent, so I don't think we need to go into those. Obviously, more development.
So if you could speak a little close to the microphone, we can hear you better.
Obviously, more development benefits business interests in the area, but I would think all business owners in the Northwood CRA would support it as well, although I can't speak to that. I'm a renter at 4700 North Flagler Drive, so directly adjacent to the south. But beyond that, my father's been a property owner or lived in Northwood for 26 years. Over that period, he's owned several properties, 3 condos, 2 single-family homes, and multifamily on 43rd Street. The story I'd heard constantly over that 26 years was that development's coming to Northwood. You know, Rybovich is going to do this, Trump's going to do this, Jeff Green's going to do this. For most of that, the last 26 years, that's never materialized. I think now we finally see the energy coming to that with the marina development. I think the Alba project would be, especially given that they're condominiums as opposed to rentals, is one of those projects that really can ignite a continued development, and along with all the concomitant improvements in public safety, and that's what everyone's not talking about. A little bit more traffic in this area might be good. We still do see a little bit of crime come over from Broadway. You know, the traffic implications might actually help the neighborhood. A well-lit, well-developed property with security adds safety to the area. There's been a number of incidents at our building. So yeah, and generally as a longtime visitor, part-time resident, now full-time resident of the area, I ardently support this as a business owner. I support it. And I think this is one of the project like this can really ignite the north end and get it to, where we want it to be and where it can enjoy the development that the south side of West Palm downtown has seen. So,
Thank you, sir. If you don't mind completing a card for us. Thank you. Do we have everyone then who wishes to be heard? And if not, John, can you play those phone messages for us?
I have 3 forms of comment forms as well.
Okay.
They're very brief.
Hi, my name is Ginger Gowing, and I'm calling about case number 1887, and I am in favor of the Alba building. Thank you.
Says it's still loading.
Okay, we enjoyed it. Do you want to let Hope?
Yeah, if you
Why
can,
don't you,
go
Hope,
ahead.
you can fill in the gaps here.
Yeah, thank you.
Ralph Canston says this great project will help to revitalize and invigorate
I'm calling.
I paused it. Go ahead.
Here, go ahead.
revitalize and invigorate the north end of West Palm Beach and will bring more residents to this area. This will help to reduce crime when you have more eyes on the streets. Karen Masciarella, I support. I would like to see this area turned into something beautiful and affordable. I believe San Geyer spoke tonight. I wish to speak in support of the proposed ALBA project, both as business owner and resident of Northwood. End of the comments.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi, I'm calling about planning board case number 1887, where you all are planning on putting residential 55 units or something to that effect where the old scuba club was. I just want to make a comment that, I mean, I live in the area. I live down on 53rd Street. And this is ludicrous, okay? Not only have they built those 2 hideous towers right down the street, now you're going to put another 55 units, and we also own a unit in the flight right behind there in 4700 North Flagler. And, you know, you guys are out of control. It's the traffic's going to be terrible. I think it's a really bad mistake, and I hope to God you get that same thing from a lot of people. I also noticed you didn't send this out to everybody in the area. So I'm sure you're probably going to snake it through, but it's a really bad idea.
Yeah, hi. I'm calling in reference to the new development that you're about to build on Flagler Drive. My opinion, I live at Regency, is with iconic Marina Village. There's already going to add 399 more cars to this road, and now you want to build a development with 55 apartments, which would put another 55 cars on this road. Something's got to give. So I don't think it's a good idea, and that's just my opinion.
This is a reference to Planning Board case number 1887. My name is Richard I. Goldberg, telephone number 561-513-1466. I am of the opinion that the riparian rights that are applicable to Planning Board case number 1887 be applied to surrounding riparian rights and not do spot zoning, but to a planned unit development. Thanks very much.
Just a couple more.
Hi, I'm calling in support of case 1887, the new development on the Intercoastal. I think it'll be a wonderful and much-needed addition to the West Palm community.
Hello, my name is Joey Colombo. I'm just calling in support of the Scuba Club tower site proposal. I think it's going to be great for the community and a really great addition to West Palm Beach. I think it will revitalize the surrounding area and really increase property values for all that live within that area. Again, I just want to voice my total and full support for it. Thank you.
And one more.
Hello,
My name is Kevin O'Day. I live at 4804 North Flagler Drive. There is one lot between my house and the proposed 55-unit development at the old Scuba Club property. I want to put in my 2 cents worth on my ideas about this property. First of all, it is too big for the neighborhood. These streets were narrowed and slowed under the Mayor Gray administration. It is a mainly single-family neighborhood. The size of this development just does not fit with the surrounding area. Plus, if you add in the increased traffic from the Rybovich project 1 block away, it will make these streets almost unnavigable. Please do not approve the size of this development. It should be cut in half. I'm sure a reasonable profit can be made on something half the size. Again, Kevin O'Day, President and Manager of Flagler Cove Condo. We are right next to the Flotilla Club, and there is one lot between us and the proposed Scuba Club development. My phone number is 561-236-1842. I am, and my community is vehemently opposed to the size and scale of this new development on the old Scuba Club property. Thank you very much.
And that concludes the voicemails.
Okay. Well, let's bring it back to the board for some discussion. What are your thoughts? Who would like to go first? Go.
Well, I again kind of share John's concern or complaint that we don't have, it's almost like it would be useful to have some broader guidance here in terms of what the overall plan for the waterfront or these areas would be. But in general, I'm sympathetic to the general view that more density is good and that this project would be additive to that community.
Deborah, your thoughts?
You know, I kind of listened to the residents give their response, how this project will look once it is put up as opposed to their single-family homes and those other residences that may be, 3 or 4 stories. It's going to be pretty huge. My concern is that such a large project, it's going on, less than 2 acres of land? 1.73? That's such a small amount. I think you need some more guidance on this.
Okay, Peter, your thoughts?
I don't have any major issues with the project, considering that it's already been approved for 40 units, and all they're doing is adding 15, and yes, the height is different, but I think one of the key factors is that there's been sufficient, in my opinion, sufficient community input. Yes, you're always going to have some people against the project, but it's obvious that a majority of the community is in favor of the project, so I really don't have any issues with it.
Andre, your thoughts?
I initially had some issues with the height of it. Then we saw the overall broader spectrum of other projects in the area that are of similar size or character, and it just sounds to me, it seems like the Pandora's box has already been opened. It's, this is going to just keep on happening. I think demand to move down to Florida is going to increase property value, and more people are coming here. We have to build up or we build out. So I think this is a great looking project. I think it's addressing the community in the sense that, and addressing the street that it's set back. I think that aesthetically it looks like a really nice looking building, and they're going to vegetate. around it and create the buffer, I'm in support of it.
Thank you, John.
One of the great things about being on the planning board is that we're a recommending body.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't actually make the final decision. The idea that we're getting investment in the northern part of the city is a great thing, because the people who live in that area want their businesses to thrive. They want to see a grocery store get built. They want to see all of these great economic impacts, and that is going to happen when people invest and build in the north side of downtown. And so I understand the appeal of residents and the city administration to embrace opportunities for investment. But I'm also concerned about the cumulative impact of these decisions when they all come to fruition. I mean, we keep approving them one after another. We had CMUD, we have Rybovich. If this is approved, it'll set a precedent for others. And so what will be the end result when all of that is done? What is the quality of life going to be? Will Flagler Drive actually even be a drivable road? How heavy will the traffic be? What is the plan? What is the vision? I don't know what that's all going to be when it's all done, because there really isn't a plan or a vision. We're just doing it one property at a time, looking at every opportunity that comes forward. I'm just concerned about what the cumulative impact will be of all of these decisions that we're making when we don't really have enough out of the ground to sort of sit back and relax and say, hey, are we making good decisions? Like, we're approving all of the concepts up front, but we don't have enough in the ground to really know what the impact is. That concerns me. And it's hard to sit here to make these kinds of leap of faith decisions that everything will work out fine, that the neighborhood will have the same quality of life that attracted the people there initially. And so it's a difficult decision, as I said before, just from a planning perspective. I just see a building that's out of context with its immediate neighborhood, shoehorned into the site. And we'll see how the vote goes. Let me just put it that way.
Fair enough. Carla?
I actually did want to bring up an issue regarding that community involvement, and I'm not making any conditions, with this particular case, but I do have a concern that I do see that there's been a lot of community support, I'm suspecting, for this project. But with these types of projects, and I do agree that we are kind of shoehorning some of these buildings into single-family areas, that there's not a concern or a more definitive concern for those who are directly impacted with these projects. So if I'm a half mile out, from this particular project as an example, and I'm a business owner, you bet I'm going to support this project. If I live next door, I'm going to have an issue with it. And so, and I think we need to concern ourselves with that a little bit more, and ask ourselves, what's the ameliorative effect in terms of what are we offering those individuals who will be directly impacted for the next 2 or 3 years of their lives when we are building up and out as we are. I do note that there's some couple of items in terms of the construction activities and making sure that things aren't damaged and that kind of thing. But I think we need to give some additional consideration to those individuals who are directly impacted and whose lives will be changed because of the fact that they are 20 feet from a new development. The other thing I did want to say, and I agree with John and others, that I'm actually a native of this area. Flagler Drive was a 2-lane highway back in the day. And we are going to have to face the fact that Florida is probably one of the #1 locations, and density is here, and it's never going away. But I do think that we can manage things a little bit differently. I think we need to look at these areas a little bit more holistically. I think we also need to make sure and understand that there are some folks who in the community who absolutely will support this, and it will be a positive effect. But those who are directly around these buildings that are being built will be negatively impacted, and we need to ask ourselves, how are we going to ameliorate that negative impact? Thanks.
And I just want to add my own thoughts to this discussion, and there's much I heard with which I agree. I do think, though, our area is growing, and there's nothing we're going to do that's going to stop that. What we need to do is manage it and deal with it as best we can. As a general proposition, I agree with those who said density is a better way to deal with it than to sprawl it all over, to lose the land we have, and to develop and pave everything. So when you're in a city and it's growing, you have a choice. Either grow up or you grow out. But you're not going to be able to avoid the growth altogether. And I have sympathy for those who came here at a different time in our history and wishes it could stay the same. There's so many things I wish could stay the same, but they don't. And just wishing it is not enough. We have to manage it. So the growth is happening. And then I look at the individual projects, and I agree with those who say it's a handsome project. It seems to enjoy, on balance, strong community support. God knows it's an area of the city that's underinvested. As the one gentleman said, we've been promised this for so many years and it hasn't happened. This is real. It's happening. It's a good-looking project. It's not far different from other things we approved, and we will be approving more. Either that or we're going to sprawl all over the place. And that's a choice we'll continue to make, building by building, application by application. Those are my thoughts. So
I did want to say one thing.
Jump in.
So I find this similar in what was being proposed at the Carefree Theater site, where there was a definite impact to neighbors and a neighborhood. And I'm surprised that there wasn't more opposition to this with the height. I mean, we heard that there was a lot of opposition, but we didn't see it. So that would have carried a little bit more weight in how I view this project, I think, because I do sympathize with those residents that live there and that are going to be impacted by this. There's no doubt. But I just think it's a well-approached project, and that's all I want to say about that.
All right, so I'm not sure how this is going to come out, but I think we need to test it with a motion one way or another.
I wanted to add a couple of points too
Okay.
before.
Go ahead.
I'm quite prepared to do the motion, but I wanted to respond to one of the comments from one of the speakers earlier about construction damage to your property. I think that most contractors, most developers will conduct a very detailed survey of all the properties immediately to the site, considering that it will be piling and it will be potentially disturbing the foundations. So rest assured, if not, as a bylaw of the city, that your property will be surveyed, and any damage that occurs will be repaired by the developer. The other comment I make is that we take for granted that we don't take into account immediate property owners. I would say to you that the staff does. I think the staff first priority probably is to look at the impact on the immediate neighbors, rear, side, front, and the report usually addresses issues that impact the immediate neighbors. I've seen it on many other projects where they requested additional landscaping, additional retaining walls, etc. So I think the staff does a good job when it comes to that. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to move approval of Planning Board Case 1877 with waiver number 1, based upon the findings that approval of an area of less than 10 acres for a residential plan development is justified by peculiar circumstances. Specifically, the width of the lot differs west to east, and 0.5 acres of the lot is submerged, but its density may be utilized to calculate the upland density. And requirements for residential plan development zoning and the benefits to be derived from such zoning can be derived with such lesser area. And permitting such lesser area for residential plan development zoning is in conformity with a comprehensive plan.
Oh, we have a
second.
motion. Have we a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second. Further discussion? If not, we'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
So, help me with the math. 6 in favor, 1 in opposition.
Mr. Chair, just for clarity, am I correct in the maker of the motion that motion for approval includes approving all of the waivers?
Oh, I'm not done yet. I want to do another one.
Okay.
Peter likes doing his in multiple motions, Sam. You'll learn this with him.
Hey, I get a volume discount. I move approval of waivers 2, 3, and 4, together with conditions 1.0 to 14.2.
Sam, you're looking at us, but do you prefer this to be a single motion?
I prefer individual, actually.
I'm so sorry, we're having
I
trouble
would
hearing.
prefer an individual for the waivers.
Okay, so you're, okay.
Okay.
I'll second.
We have a motion, we have a second, and we have approval from our council. So, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
So 6 in favor, 1 opposed, passes. And that concludes this application. Any more motion, Mr. Pifko? Are we done?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to our next case. Is this 1899 A and B? Welcome back. Were you riveted to our discussion? I kind of like sometimes when we're not. You go up? The commission. Sorry. Commission. Yeah, yeah.
And that's the reason, you know, why.
That's why one flag bearers get it.
Yeah, we can turn it down, they're gonna approve it.
I know that.
You know,
But you want to make sure that your
I
values.
want the record to reflect my concern.
Totally. Yeah, I get it. I am.
You're concerned.
I don't know what the end result of all
Well,
this
you
is going
want.
to be.
Yes?
For,
That's what I said.
Okay. Well, we're cleaned up in the minutes. Thank you.
1877,
Okay. Okay, fair
1887.
enough. All right.
Oh, 1887.
Do you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, do we have to change it, or?
I don't know. We'll go through the thing.
Okay.
Okay. We'll clarify for the record.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
I'll tell Holt. Oh, okay.
She said you had to put it up on the record.
Oh, yeah.
We get started again. We will.
Okay.
You know, I knew how the vote was going to go, so I had the luxury. We can turn everything down. Hold my position there. Which is ridiculous.
It's not a status quo, you can't just leave all the neighborhoods the way they are.
Because ultimately the commission is going to make the decision. Well, I think we also put them on notice.
I could walk my dog on every property.
That they would address it with the commission, and at least that message got there, because they've asked them to go back and redesign it.
I know that. I know. Because they obviously know that that would be a total blunder.
Anyway, you were saying we got.
Sure. That painting scheme.
I'm sorry?
Half.
Yeah, we're ready to go. Everyone's using the restroom right now. And we need to clean up something for the record, too.
Garage was with all of like the vertical.
Incorrect reference to a case number of the prior motions. So someone called us on it.
Exactly. It doesn't look like.
I know, right? Right.
And then they want to make it say it's hard. I think I was reaching really hard on that.
I mean, they're here.
I don't have aspirations.
Yeah, but no, these were the ones we already heard.
I don't have.
So no, those are, I just have the two here. These two.
Make sure I have everybody on that keyboard. Right. No, I have no aspirations at all.
Why don't you take the whole damn?
Even this aspiration, every month I think I'm going to resign.
You're good at this, and I'm not.
Yeah.
trying to stop
Yeah.
us from,
Get the packet on Friday, 300 pages.
Oh, because it was that big, yeah. I think it was like
Challenge.
7
I just wanna-
But sometimes we turn nothing, then they approve it.
What, how much would be tuna? How do you deliberate that? How do you make that?
You look down that whole coast there.
I know. I've all these little.
Yeah.
I really would, I don't wanna be.
Oh, every property up and down the road, right?
I guess she wants to talk twice. Maybe she had one for A, one for B.
Especially if it's considering that for 40 years.
She needs to get away. Okay. I would like to have us come back together at some point, Mr. Pivko, Ms. Ward, so we can get on and get home. All right. First order of business, I think we need a clarification, a correction. On the prior two motions we voted, I think the case reference was incorrect. Can we have unanimous consent that, that we will treat it as if, or we're correcting it to make sure we have the right case number? John,
Yes.
you have no objection to that, just a procedural
Yes.
thing? So is there complete agreement? So to make the record clear, by unanimous consent, the planning board corrects that error, and you could clean it up in the minutes.
1887, yeah.
Okay. All right, we're calling our last two cases, 1899A and 1899B.
No, we still have 1891.
There's another one. Oh, we have that dock, don't we? Ah,
There's still a dock.
Okay. Forgive me, I was just 1899. Here we go. I understand you have a 2.5-minute presentation about a dock?
I'm going to keep it short and sweet, all right? I understand
Sure.
everyone wants to go home. I thought this was going to be a Zoom meeting, and I drove here from Delray, so
Okay.
believe me. And I'm speaking on behalf of Docks and More Construction Company, the contractors for this. We are actually hired to do the property north, and we are only asking to just get an extension of 30 feet for a dock, and the width is the same as the prior extension as already is. So we have a Bethnic Seagrass survey that is not affecting any ecological environment around the water, and all the neighbors around have extensions already. So
Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the brevity. Any questions of this particular speaker? And if we're here for staff, we may call you back so you're not
Absolutely.
penalized for being brief.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Elena Wooten. I'm planner representing the planning.
If you don't mind, if you could speak more
Speak up?
directly to the mic,
Okay.
we're straining
Sure.
to hear you.
All right. My name is Elena Wooten. I'm a planner representing planning staff in this planning board case 1891. It's a special use class A application for a dock located at 3000 North Flagler Drive. The subject property is comprised of a single-family home and an existing dock located in a residential district and surrounded by other residential uses. The applicant, William Finnernan, is represented by Docks of Moore. You saw Mitch earlier. As he stated, this application is to extend an existing dock. The subject property has riparian rights and an existing 116-foot dock. The applicant is requesting a waiver to extend the length of the dock 31 feet to a total of 161.4 feet, beyond the maximum 100 feet permitted by code. They are also going to move the existing boat lift to the end of the proposed terminus and install a new boat lift to replace the moved one. The applicant needs the additional length to allow the dock to reach deeper water levels and permit the owner full use and enjoyment of the dock. The applicant has provided all of the necessary approvals for the extension from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection and Army Corps of Engineers. This is the existing survey with the existing dock. That's 116 feet. This is a dock plan showing the existing dock at 116 feet, as well as the boat lift to be removed and moved to the end of the terminus. And this is the proposed dock plan showing the extension of the 31 feet, the addition of the boat lift, and the removal and replacement of the other boat lift to the end of the terminus. Staff finds that this request complies with all of the general use, specific use, residential district, and additional standards, with the exception of dock length, in which the application includes a request for a waiver for, and it meets all of the waiver standards. Staff does not object to this waiver request. And staff is recommending approval of case 1891 with the following conditions listed here. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you. Let me ask the first question to Mr. Green. I thought we had earlier voted that this was all going to be handled, if we could, on a staff level, or maybe we needed a change in that. Wasn't that to be there was a while there we got these every other meeting.
Rick Green, Development Services Director. No, never for the docks. Those were always Class A special use permits.
Okay. Well, we may want to revisit that at some point. You come forward again. I remember there was a time we had so many of these, and then we said, surely there's a more efficient way to handle them.
No, you need a bigger boat.
Yeah, you need a bigger boat. So in terms of, let me just ask you this, in terms of the surrounding, in the past, I've sometimes seen like grass where we show the other docks. How does this fit under this proposed thing? Is it comparable to what the other docks are in the immediate area?
Yes, it's comparable. In fact, the last dock that I brought before you was for 3010 North Flagler, and that is approximately 156.
When is it that you recommend against this? What are you looking for that when you decide we're going to recommend for it or against it? What are the considerations?
I may have to ask Angela to come up, but
Okay.
what I would like to say is that we normally look at the request and look at how the surrounding docks are.
I see.
And if it is not in compliance with those, then we would recommend denial.
Understood. Anything you want to add to that, Angela?
Chair, Angela Van Planen is zoning administrator. You remember about, was it last year, we came before you and amended our dock regulations, whereas staff doesn't basically, as long as it meets certain requirements, they can go in. But the requirements they can't meet are the depth. We kept 100 foot in depth and length. That's the one we kept, in the middle 1/3. Those are two things docks have to comply with.
Right.
And we know, and we cannot no longer ask for DEP requirement. We just assume they're gonna go get DEP requirements based on the state legislature. So when they come to us and give us the letter and saying that because of the seagrass, because they have to go out further, and most of them have, as you can see, a certificate from DEP that shows that DEP is okay with that. That's what DEP is saying. 9 times out of 10, we're gonna approve it, because it's just based on those regulations. You don't see as many as you used to, but again, some of them where the channel is narrow and when the channel needs to be dredged up, you're going to see that because they have to go out and they got bigger yachts nowadays, so they need bigger, they need bigger mooring areas and lifts to put these big yachts they bringing in nowadays. So that's what we are. So I mean, 99% of the time, staff is just going to recommend approval because it's just the process that we have to go through.
Okay, understood. Any questions of staff for either the lady who spoke before or for Angela? Any questions, anyone? Okay. Did anyone from the public wish to be heard on this? All right. Does anyone have any concerns about the application?
No.
All right. Thank you so much. Well, look for a motion then for approval.
Make a motion.
We have a motion for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. All right. Now we're at our last cases. 1899 A and B.
Good evening. Ana Maria Ponte, City Urban Designer for the record. We're here tonight to hear two cases that are a follow-up of a case that you heard last month. These are related with the proposed redevelopment of what is now called the Nora District. We are here for hearing the Planning Board case 1899A, that is a city-initiated request for an amendment to Article 4 Downtown Master Plan to provide specific regulations to implement the proposed Nora District, amend the Brestford Park District, and correct some scrivener's errors, along with Planning Board 1899B. That is a city-initiated request for an amendment to the Downtown Master Plan zoning atlas to indicate the boundaries of the new Nora District, rezone the old Industrial Shake District into Nora and Brestford Park District R into Nora, and introduce new street classifications for the new district, and rezone 2 parcels as urban open space. The subject parcels are all located within the Downtown Master Plan area within Commissioner District Number 3, Commissioner Christy Fox. I'm going to repeat a little bit of this information. You heard it last month, but for the benefit of the public, I'm going to just explain a little bit why we are here doing these proposals. In the last 15 years, the downtown has seen a lot of new development, but that development has concentrated primarily south of Quadrille Boulevard, between Quadrille and Okeechobee Boulevard. Very little investment has occurred really north of Quadrille Boulevard, between Quadrille and Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard. Only 2 major projects have been built, both east of Dixie Highway. One is the Lofting District. It's a residential project, 8 stories, and also the HSS facility that opened a year and a half ago as a medical facility on Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard. Beyond that, the area west of Dixie Highway, south of Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard, has seen very little investment. Just some renovations of existing residential houses have happened, and some renovations of existing commercial buildings along Dixie Highway. The downtown in 2009, when we did the update, had put in place some regulation to try to promote the redevelopment of this area. The area along Railroad Avenue was envisioned as industrial chic district, as the names call it, as a transitional district where light industrial uses could coexist with residential and commercial uses. The intention was to promote the adapted and renovated building stock and get these warehouses basically transformed into more appropriate uses from the existing industrial, maybe some alternative housing and artist studios and some commercial activities. The reality is the vision that was put in place in 2009 has not really materialized. The structures are still vacant, or it is still utilized as storage or industrial uses along Railroad Avenue. The neighborhood has remained generally dormant, and large percentage of vacant parcels within the neighborhood exist within the neighborhood. When we did the count of the number of parcels within the neighborhood that are not occupied or are vacant, 38.6% of the parcels within this area are vacant. The industrial uses still occupy the warehouses structures, despite the regulation tried to promote other uses to be located in there. And when I'm talking about the neighborhood, I'm referring to the area between Dixie Highway and the FEC, Palm Beach Lakes, and Quadrille. So all these, that includes in reality 2 districts, but we'll refer it as one single neighborhood. For the last several years, the city has recognized that they need to promote redevelopment in this area and modify the zoning regulations to attract new investment, because it's clearly the regulations that were put in place in 2009 were not really promoting the redevelopment of this area that is so close to the downtown. As we were doing that in 2019, NDT Development and Place Projects approached the city with a proposal for redevelopment of the area. We started to collaborate with them in the process to crafting some strategies to promote the redevelopment in this area, working with the CRA and identifying what amendments were necessary to the code to promote that. After several months of working, the general proposal basically meets the vision of the downtown master plan, even what it was put in place in 2009. It's a compact urban development that seeks to preserve the district character, propose mixed uses, and promote still the pedestrian-friendly environment. So all in line with the general goals of the downtown. So we see this area as a great opportunity for the downtown area to kind of promote a new development in this proximity of the core of the downtown, new housing and new commercial activity. So having said this, we have to embark in a very extensive process of amending the regulations to allow these to take place. As I said before, you already saw the first part of this, the proposed amendments to the downtown master plan element of the comprehensive plan. It was approved last month by this board and is now scheduled to go to the City Commission on November 29th. The presentation today is related to the two next steps. The first one is the amendment to the downtown master plan urban regulations in the zoning and land development regulations, and then the rezoning of the industrial chic district into the new NORA district, and the rezoning of portions of the Brestford Park district also into the NORA district. So I'm gonna go first over the proposed changes to what we call the zoning atlas. The downtown master plan, when it was approved, it created a document that we call the zoning atlas that includes 4 specific figures that kind of identify the district, the planning areas, the sub-districts, and the district classification. So we need to amend these 4 figures to implement the new district that is being called NORA. So the new district is basically replaces the old industrial chic district. So what you see in your screen as the blue industrial chic is now going to be called NORA, and also will include portions of the Brestford Park district outlined in red as part of the new district. So on the right, you will see that blue is the new boundary of the new NORA district. At the same time, the figure 2 will basically do the same, identify the new boundaries of the district, that is now the red. And then the figure 4 of the zoning atlas will update the street classification based on the new concept of the area. For example, Railroad Avenue was originally identified as a secondary street. Now it's proposed as a primary street because it's going to have a much higher level of a pedestrian environment and activity, and it's a priority to make it a better street for people. So the same 11th Street is also classified now as a primary street, the same way that 7th Street. And then last, the figure number 3, that is the sub-district boundaries, that is in effect the zoning map for the downtown area, also identifies the sub-districts in this area. So the original ICD 5 in light green, it's gonna be the new NORA 5, and the industrial chic district 2 is gonna be the new NORA 2. Portions of the Brestford Park district are gonna be rezoned as NORA 2, and then portions of the Brestford Park district 5 will be rezoned or are proposed to rezone as NORA 5. The goal for this is to consolidate the NORA district as the new area and provide the regulation for it. The base development capacity and height allowed in the new NORA districts will be the same than the previous districts. So we are not modifying the base development capacity. It remains the same that it was. So in this part, basically, we are just changing the names and making some adjustment to the boundaries of the sub-districts. Then the next part of the amendments that we are proposing under 1899A are the amendments to the downtown master plan urban regulations. I'm gonna go over the most, kind of the main changes. There are some other minor changes in some of the tables that will kind of provide the full regulation, but I'm just gonna go over the main changes. The rest of the information is included on your staff report. The NORA district, so as I say, the industrial chic district now is removed, and we have to replace it by the new NORA district with a new vision for it, and basically stating that the NORA district is characterized as a mixed-use district that implements a contextual and gradual transition scale between a high intensity along Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard and the higher intensity of the downtown core. The areas along North Railroad Avenue will accommodate small and mid-scale buildings in new structures or renovations of the existing industrial buildings with commercial ground floor uses intended to activate the street. The same way that we established a new district, we have to establish new building requirement tables for each of these new districts. So the new tables will have the NORA 5 and the NORA 2 as the new building requirement tables that will establish basically the base building envelope and primarily the ground floor setbacks. The building requirement tables for Brestford Park District 5 and Brestford Park District 2 are slightly amended, with the main amendments being that the density limitations existing right now under the Brestford Park District 5 that had density limitation of 40 dwelling units per acre is proposed to be removed. And the reason for this is what we wanted to offer the same flexibility that is offered for the core of the downtown, where the number of units is basically regulated by the average unit size and not by a density. In the case of the Brestford Park District residential, there's a current density limitation of 20 dwelling units per acre. The proposal is increasing that density to 32 units per acre to allow a little bit more flexibility for these small structures to have multiple units inside. That responds to an existing configuration of the district where some of the houses within the neighborhood have multiple units in there. There are other adjustments that are suggested in this. In general, the table 4-2 and 3, that includes the information about permitted uses. It's adjusted also to basically regulate the NORA district as a mixed-use district, where in this case, for the Brestford Park District residential will allow commercial uses along Railroad Avenue. Some commercial uses like offices are allowed in the core of the neighborhood, but not full commercial like restaurants or hotels. There also, we're proposing also additional restrictions along 10th Avenue. So the regulation will require residential uses on the north side of 10th Street to match the proposed, the existing residential uses on the south side. And these are kind of very detailed regulations to fit in the context. The main changes in reality come with the changes that we are proposing for the TDR receiving side. And the concept in here is that in order for us to promote the redevelopment of this neighborhood, we need to promote or allow additional development capacity. The additional development capacity will be focused basically on the areas of the neighborhood north of 10th Street, where the majority of the vacant land exists, and also south of 7th Street that exists some warehouses. A specific regulation is put in place to suggest how what is the additional development capacity and the height. For example, the NORA 228, that is a block between 10 and 11, it's suggested to have additional development capacity to go to a maximum height of 8 stories and increase its development capacity to 3.8 FAR. The block, another example, the block closer to the Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard and the corner with the FEC, that is a kind of a tucked-in block, it's allowed to have an additional development capacity to go to 20 stories and an FAR of 5.5. In this case, as the heights of the buildings are basically tailored to go from the lowest scale of the core of the neighborhood that is being preserved to the highest buildings next to Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard by the bridge. As I just mentioned, the highest building is at the corner of Palm Beach Lakes with the FEC, where the highest point of the bridge is. So kind of we are compensating the proximity to the bridge with the highest building. And then towards the south, the height is also being transitioned from the lowest scale of the core of the neighborhood, that is basically from 8th Street to 10th Street, to Quadrille Boulevard, where maximum height of 10 stories will be allowed as a transition towards the much higher buildings south of Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard. We have been working very carefully with the building requirements tables for each of these incentive areas to ensure that the transition is compatible with the residential. This is a section for the proposed NORA 228, where along 10th Street, where we have residential buildings on the south side that are allowed to have a maximum height of 3 stories, the north side that is going to be allowed to have 8 stories, the frontage along 10th Street is maintained at 3 stories, and the building had to basically step back above that 3rd story to provide for a smooth transition towards the low scale. The step back in this case, we are suggesting to have a 40 feet step back, and also even include an additional regulation to limit the length of the tower element of these buildings along 10th Street to mitigate for the scale. Similarly to that, for the higher buildings next to the bridge, the portion of those buildings close to 11 are also maintained at 8 stories, and the higher towers are set back or step back above the 8 stories. Those are the changes for the new building requirements for the receiving side for the TDRs. Then the other big change that we are proposing with this that I think is very creative, and we have put a lot of effort to craft this, is the changes that we are suggesting for the sending sites for the TDRs. In this case, we are proposing a new NORA Brestford Park District, a special sending site area, by which there are 3 different categories, and they could transfer the development capacity from these sites within the NORA district, only within the district. So for this one, the first one, it's the NORA Brestford Park Legacy Structure Sending Site that includes basically all the properties located in the core of the neighborhood. See the yellow between 10th Street and the alley on the south side of 8th Street. That includes the core of the residential neighborhood that we are preserving and maintaining as a residential core, as well as the properties along Railroad Avenue. This is now being designated as a legacy area, where the structures within this area could basically renovate the structures and transfer the TDRs within the district. They could, if there's a vacant site, they could build a new structure meeting the compatibility requirements and the design guidelines requirements, and still transfer the TDRs within the district. So they will not have to designate the structure as is the traditional TDR program, but it's a little bit more like an alternative approach to preserve the character in general and the scale, and still allow the projects to transfer the TDRs. The legacy structures is basically, we define that as a building that contributes to the general character of the particular district, but not currently designated as a historic structure. So these are 2 examples. This house on the right of your screen is a house that has a value for the character of the neighborhood, for the scale, and preserves the environment, but the owner may not necessarily want to designate the structure as a historic structure. So they will be able to still take advantage of the TDRs and transfer their unused development capacity to another receiving site within the district, within the NORA district, not outside, but within the district. So we are kind of keeping the development capacity within that area, but allowing the flexibility for these property owners to do. In addition to that, we are creating 2 additional sending site strategies that are very progressive. The first one is the NORA Temporary Public Open Space Sending Site that basically will allow a site to be improved as a temporary public open space and transfer, but still transfer its development capacity to a receiving site within the district. In this case, this picture shows a little bit of what the vision is. This is the Heart and Soul Park in the Northwest neighborhood that before being upgraded fully as a park, it was utilized as a temporary open space with minimum improvements. So we are suggesting minimum improvements with like 3 canopy and vegetated area for this temporary open space, and a minimum seating that could be movable seating to improve the space, and still the developer will be able to move the development capacity to a receiving site within the district while develop the first project. And when the site is ready to get developed, they will have to bring back their development capacity. In a similar concept, we are suggesting the NORA Temporary Public Open Space Sending Site that will also allow the construction of temporary public parking lots within the district in certain areas of the district, and transfer the unused development capacity while for the first phase of development. In addition to that, I just want to mention that in addition to the legacy projects, we identify specific properties within the neighborhood. These are the hatch properties in the map on the figure 435 that still are eligible for historic designation. So if the owners decides to designate the structure as a historic and do the renovations and all that, they will be able to actually transfer the TDRs not only within the NORA, but outside the NORA to any other receiving sites with the downtown, and they could take advantage of the ad valorem tax extension. So these will be for those property owners that decide to go ahead with the regular designation that we have right now under the TDR program. So we're offering them the flexibility of this. That is basically all the amendments that we are proposing for the NORA district. In addition to that, we are proposing the rezoning of two particular parcels in the downtown. One is Jose Marti, that is a park right now, but it's not designated as an urban open space, so we are officially rezoning that parcel as an urban open space. And then the other one is the Flagler Station Linear Park. That is a new linear park that we are creating on the back of the Flagler Station project, that is Banyan Boulevard and Tamarind Avenue. This is the old railroad spur that goes that used to go from the water treatment plant east to Flagler. So the tracks portions of the track are still there. We are making that a small linear park, and we want to officially designate it as an urban open space. In terms of the process, I know you heard us last month with the presentation for the comp plan amendment. We are going through that process still and presented to the City Commission on November 29th. Today is the presentation for the zoning and land development regulations, so we are making progress on this long approval process, and we are hoping to have these completed by February next year, once we receive the approval from the Department of Economic Opportunity and we go through the first reading for the amendments and the rezoning. In terms of community input, we conducted work session earlier this year with the City Commission, and we had a meeting last year for the initial amendments that were done for this proposal, and we have another community meeting last September with over 20 participants and received positive feedback. We send notifications of all the public hearings to all the property owners within the neighborhood, and also 500 feet around the neighborhood for all the public hearings for the comprehensive plan amendment, as well as the zoning and land development regulations and rezoning. Based on that, staff recommends approval of Planning Board 1899A and Planning Board 1899B based on the findings and data and analysis presented in this staff report, and based on the finding that the amendments comply with all the amendment standards found in Section 9432 of the Zoning and Land Development Regulation. Joe First is here, and he would like to also make a presentation about the project. So I'm going to transfer the podium to him.
Good evening, Planning Board. Joseph First with an address of 1105 Dixie Highway. So obviously Anna Maria's presentation was thorough and very specific. You've heard me present the vision at the last meeting. This presentation is going to be much more focused on some of the high-level things that we're focusing on, but really more importantly, how the context and form of this neighborhood continues to really be contextual and thoughtful, and then most importantly, the amount of support that this project has from all of the affected property owners within the district, with the exception of one. So there are three components to this project. You've seen this, I'll do it very briefly. It's number one, it's the conversion of 120,000 square feet of industrial buildings that are primarily vacant, with the exception of 2 industrial users, into a vibrancy district that has a mix of food, beverage, creative office, lifestyle uses. It's the repurposing of the vacant parcels on the east side of North Railroad Avenue to create open space, public realm opportunities, and a public park on private land. And this project also will be doing all of the underground infrastructure along North Railroad Avenue, upgrading the water and sewer, undergrounding the power lines, and creating a curbless street, not too dissimilar from what you see in Clematis, with 14-foot sidewalks on each side. Currently, the sidewalks in this neighborhood are 4 feet and not even ADA compliant, and clearly not in a position to allow for a great pedestrian experience. In terms of what we're talking about tonight, it's of course the proposed zoning amendments. The theme here is really simple. It's the preservation of the core of the neighborhood and the character of the neighborhood, allowing those single-family homes and duplex homes to have additional economic incentive, as Anna Maria was mentioning, allowing them to send their unused FAR into receiving sites, and then allowing for what we call a gradual transitional zoning as we get north of 10th Street to Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard. In listening to some of the comments earlier, I think this is a slide that shows really how important this project is to the growth of the downtown. You've seen a lot of development happen within the downtown. You've heard the struggles from property owners and business owners in Northwood. This is a project that really starts to bridge these neighborhoods together. We have the hospital district to the north, which is obviously very much in support of this project. But when you think about the context map, this allows the downtown of West Palm Beach to continue to grow. We are the northern edge of the downtown master plan, so this is a downtown neighborhood that sits between Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard, Quadrille, the FEC to the west, and Dixie to the east. Context. This is something that's incredibly important to the city as well as to me. If you look at the image on the left side, you see the Palm Beach Lakes Bridge. You can see the amount of vacant properties that exist south of the bridge. You can see the industrial buildings that exist to the east of the railway. And then you can see the very well-developed single-family home environment between 8th and 10th Street. You can also see the hospital district to the northeast and the scale and intensity that hospital district, Good Samaritan, HSS has, just as our northeastern neighbor. The image on the top right shows a more specific image of the context and form that effectively is getting preserved through this plan and the creation of the Conservation Legacy District that Anna Maria mentioned earlier. And then on the bottom right, you can also see really the connectivity to downtown, and then of course the connectivity to Palm Beach Island through the bridge that exists right off of Quadrille. These are some of the existing conditions in the northern part of the neighborhood. The largest image in the center, that's an image under the bridge. As those of you know that have driven through here, that is a hub of illicit activity, drugs, crime, etc. The image in the top right, that's actually the block between 10th and 11th Street, so you can see the amount of vacant parcels that Anna Maria was mentioning, and then generally some of the vacated structures that you see within the northern part of the neighborhood. This project is premised on these 4 points. It's to revitalize an underutilized part of downtown, convert industrial relics into contemporary community assets, create new commercial offerings and enhance public space, and provide diverse housing to support the growth of downtown West Palm Beach. In terms of convert, this is, I think, the single greatest opportunity that I've ever seen to breathe life into these industrial relics along North Railroad Avenue. Again, this is 120,000 square feet of existing building that probably has a total employment base of less than 20. If you can imagine this filled with more vibrant uses, food and beverage, creative office, etc., this is a hub of economic development for the downtown. This image shows our plans in terms of the conversion. To me, there's a few benefits to this. In addition to the job creation, the economic development, et cetera, you can see the public park space, you can see the public realm. This is a neighborhood that's open to the public. Anybody can come here and hang out within the public realm, within the park space. They can obviously frequent the shops and the restaurants and the office spaces, but they can also come here to just have a day. And this neighborhood has great connectivity to surrounding neighborhoods, obviously within the downtown. The zoning framework. I'm going to take a little deep dive here because I think this is incredibly important for everybody to understand the impact of the incentive program as it relates to this project. So this is a fact. NOR will provide the greatest opportunity for mixed income housing within downtown West Palm Beach. The reason that is that the existing FAR that all of these properties have is basically a 1x FAR. The capacity that would be allowed through this zoning code would allow for there to be in excess of 1.2 million square feet of additional development above the in-place FAR. And so the way that this has been done and crafted by the city, I think candidly is brilliant in terms of creating this gradual transitional zoning. And we'll get into a specific project example to show how much affordable workforce housing would actually be delivered from one single parcel after this slide. So here you can see again the preservation of the scale of and the context and the core of the neighborhood between 8th and 10th Street. The image that you see in the bottom left, that is taken from this neighborhood. That is the typical sort of form that you see. That form will be preserved, and there will be an economic benefit for that owner to send their unused FAR into the receiving sites further to the north or to the south of the neighborhood. The second image that you see is, as Anna Maria was mentioning, on 10th Street, which is where you start the transition from the single-family homes into the more intensive development. There's a requirement that all of 10th Street is residential. Not only does it have to be residential, it has to be 3 stories in scale. So imagine 10th Street as a fully walkable residential street where you have a townhome product on the north side of the street and you have the single-family home product on the south side of the street. The next image that shows is basically the higher intensity development that you see further north in the neighborhood. The whole premise of this gradual zoning is, again, creating these step backs so that when you start to get height, intensity, and scale, those are happening recessed far enough back from the street that they don't affect people's points of view and their sight lines as you transition further to the north. This is a specific example. So we're going to go into the weeds for a moment on this so that you can appreciate the impact of housing and affordable housing that this project will bring. So the site C that you see on the left, that's a 4.4 acre site, okay? This total land assemblage that you see north of 10th Street is approximately 11 plus acres. This is just 4.4 acres of it. You can see in the level 1, the yellow pieces at the bottom, that's the townhome product that is required along 10th Street. That lot, 4.4 acres, is 175,000 square feet. This development in an 8-story form, which is the maxed allowed height, would have a total gross area of 536,200 square feet. That is what this project, this massing study is demonstrating. The difference between the in-place FAR and the total development capacity is 368,000 square feet. That square footage has to be transferred either from inside of Nora or from outside, from somewhere else within the downtown, from another historic structure. The code already mandates that 20% of all incentive transfers throughout the entire downtown are subject to an affordability requirement. You get a 20% discount for common areas, so that 368,000 square feet that has to be transferred to build this project equates to a 295,000 square feet of FAR that's subject to the 20% affordable requirement. This project has, as massed here, has an average unit size of 725 square feet, and this project has a total of 482 apartments. Based on the code that exists, 81 of those units have to be affordable housing, and that would mean 25% at 60% AMI, 25% at 80% AMI, and 50% at 100% of AMI. So this project has the opportunity, this is just one example on a quarter of the land area of this project to show you how much affordable and workforce housing this project will deliver. There's no other opportunity like this within the downtown, and this is something that we on the development team are incredibly proud of, and obviously the good work of the city prior to this project mandates this as a requirement. One thing that was mentioned in the last meeting was, support. Well, who really supports this? Who doesn't support this? I think that you'll find these statistics overwhelming. You'll see a series of images. We're going to break this down by sort of section in the neighborhood. The 8th to 10th Street, that is all of the single-family duplex homes, et cetera. What you see on the map, all the gray properties are properties that we own, and all the green property, all the other properties are properties that we do not. There are 62 parcels between 8th Street and 10th Street in the residential core. We have active letters of support from 54 of those 62 parcels, plus all of the parcels on the east side of Dixie as well. As you can see, there's not a single known non-supporter of this project within the residential core of this neighborhood, which is the component that's most affected by the intensity and scale to the north. The next slide So the transition point of 10th Street. This is the area where, again, you have single-family homes on the south side of 10th Street, and you start the transitional zoning to the north side of the street. There are 14 parcels that exist on the south side of 10th Street. We have active support from 13 of those. There's one parcel that we don't know if they're a supporter or not a supporter, but not one single person that is affected by this development south of 10th Street on this street has any opposition to this. And as a matter of fact, they're all outwardly supportive. 10th to 11th Street. So this is the first block that has the 8-story product, the one that I showed you the example of. This one is not exactly fair because obviously we own this entire block and control this entire block, but clearly there's not a single individual within this entire block, 10th to 11th Street, that has any opposition to this project. And then here we are on 11th Street. So these are the blocks from 11th Street to Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard. The ones that are in gray are the ones that, again, that we own or control. The ones that are in green are active supporters, and the two that are white are two unknown. One is actually in contract, and the other one, the owner, we've reached out to them, but again, we've not heard any support that's been shown vocally. There's one single property owner who you will probably hear from tonight that's been opposed to the plan. So within this area, there are 150 parcels of property, and to date, there's one known opponent to this entire project. And so from an outreach perspective and an engagement perspective, I think it's pretty compelling. When you look around our neighborhood, we have support from Good Samaritan Hospital. For them, when you think about their needs for workforce housing, for nurses, for people coming to this district, we are the closest walkable area. Not only do we provide housing, but we also have walkability, we have wellness, we have other elements that are very relevant to the hospitals. Northwood Village, you heard from a gentleman earlier, this is the bridge that starts to connect the downtown to Northwood. The Community Redevelopment Agency of West Palm is a supporter. And then, of course, the Chamber of Commerce for the Palm Beaches. Last map that I want to show. So again, the map on the left shows you the neighborhood in its entirety. All the parcels that are gray are parcels that we own and control. All the parcels that are green are active supporters of the project. And again, the one in red is the one that we have not had support to date. And then I think there was a comment also the last time we were talking about, well, how did notice get out? The city has sent notice. This is a city-sponsored application. So the city has sent notice twice to 308 affected property owners, all the property owners within the district, all the property owners within 500 feet of the district. You can see the map on the right. Of those 308 affected owners, again, there's been one single opponent to this project. So I think from a support perspective, showing the context and the form, nothing is perfect. It's impossible to make everybody happy with every move and every decision. I can tell you from experience that this is the most thoughtful, comprehensive, large-scale redevelopment project I've ever seen in my work throughout the United States. I'm incredibly proud to be part of it, and thank you for your time this evening.
All right. Any questions of either the city or of the other presenter from staff? I mean, from the board here. And Joe, I have just an initial question for you, if you don't mind. How much investment is being made either directly by your people or by others who are working in conjunction with you? Does this represent for this neighborhood?
To date, or when the project is fully built out?
Let's go start with to date and when it's fully
Yeah, so I can't speak to others because we don't quantify what other people have spent in the neighborhood. We will be capitalized just from an acquisition basis at about $40 million in this neighborhood. The redevelopment of North Railroad Avenue, the acquisition or the contribution of all those parcels, the investment in the street, the infrastructure, and the adaptive reuse assets would be about $125 million. And then assuming that we build through the capacity that we have, this project has the sort of impact of probably about $500 million. We had all of the tax assessments through the CRA work that we've done. This project over the life cycle of the CRA through 2046 will generate $95 million of estimated incremental tax revenue for the city of West Palm Beach.
Thank you. Questions?
John, don't go away mad. Don't go away.
You wanted the questions, now you're getting
I'm
them.
happy to take it.
You showed some examples of certain developments and how many workforce housing units they would develop. But when you look at the overall fully built-out development, are you looking at least 2,500 workforce housing when it's all
Well,
done?
we have, based on the way the code is written, assuming that we built out, again, and I'm very specific and want to be exact, if we assume that we built all residential, multifamily rental, we would have about 300,000 square feet of affordable units. Depending on the unit size, you would divide that amount of square footage by the unit size, and that's how many units we would be delivering. So again, when you think about the impact for a mixed income environment, this project, just because of the nature of the limited amount of in-place FAR and the way the incentive program works, is the greatest supplier of workforce and affordable housing within the downtown. And obviously, I'm sure Anna Maria and Rick can speak to that in more detail if you'd like.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes.
Please, John.
I just want to ask some questions of staff, please. I had a couple questions about the TDR program. This idea that existing property owners would see this economic benefit. Homeowners who are in the core area. Is that, once the zoning's put in place, is that an immediate benefit, or do they have to go through a process or spend money to renovate their property, or what is the process for them to have a marketable TDR that they can put out there?
I mean, once the regulation is put in place, I mean, similar to what happens right now with the TDRs, if they want to transfer the TDRs, we will just go and evaluate the property. If the property is in good condition, and let's say they have done some renovations and they don't have windows broken or the roof leaking or anything like that, they could transfer the TDRs immediately.
Does the property have to, say I'm a homeowner and I have a 50-year-old ranch. It's not Mission Revival with a porte cochere on it, as was shown in the picture. Would I be eligible to use my property's in good condition?
If it is in good condition, you will be able to claim.
So it doesn't
under
have
the
to-
legacy program, you probably will not be eligible for the historic designation, but
Yes.
under the legacy program, you will be able to transfer the TDR.
And so the idea of Secretary of Interior standards or things like that aren't in play here in terms of people having the immediate benefit?
Not for the legacy program.
Okay.
So they will be limited to transfer the TDRs within the district.
Do you want to add something, Rick?
I want to mention, Fana wants to cover this, but if you could talk about the value, $15.
He's thinking of buying a lot in here.
And then the fact that we're changing Article 2 to make this an administrative.
Yeah, just Rick wanted to know the market value of the TDRs right now, it's around $15 a square foot.
Okay.
So.
In terms of, because the selling point here, and I'm just trying to understand the immediate economic benefit to people who own property in that neighborhood is, for that to materialize, how many TDRs are outside existing in the downtown that are on the market? Are there enough out there that these folks who own property here, nobody would need them?
No, actually, the market is very tight right now.
Okay.
So we have several developers that are looking for TDRs. One you just heard, the Nora project, just for these developer to develop those 4 blocks or 3 blocks on the north end, they will need around 1.2 million square feet of TDRs that they need to buy.
And do you know off the top of your head how many TDRs, like just ballpark square footage, exists out on the market? Available, maybe not on the market, but available.
Yeah, I think, and this is a trick, we keep a list of all the eligible structures in the downtown. Based on our numbers, I think it's around 1 million that are in there, but not everybody wants to sell their TDRs. So right now it's tight. It's tight, they're trying to look for the square footage from different sources.
If I could jump in, Rick Green, Development Services Director. It's a timely question because just this afternoon, Anna, myself, and our historic preservation planner had a conversation with my counterpart at the school board. So they will be coming in and designating 4 historic buildings at Dreyfus. That will equate to about 477,000 square feet of TDRs. The Seaboard Train Station is another one that might generate approximately just under 300,000 square feet. But we will keep emphasizing to go after the historic structures that still have not designated that could benefit from the TDR program. So there's a scarcity right now, so there's a big demand. A lot of developers are looking for TDR, so I don't think it's ever going to be a question where there's not going to be too much that folks won't benefit from this program.
I'm asking these questions only so that in my mind I can be certain that there's no loophole. You know, like when we talk about the CMUD project and we talk about incentives, and if Developer Green provides certain number of workforce housing units in his luxury tower that probably won't end up in that tower, but they're going to need to go somewhere else. And maybe this is a target site for those workforce units, and I imagine it could be, right? As long as they meet the economic, the income level.
If you remember, as part of the CMUD incentive, the workforce housing component, if it's not provided within the building itself, and they don't go the second option, which is the buyout, the third option, it has to be provided within 1 mile. That's what the commission approved Monday night.
And is this within that 1 mile
This, I
radius?
think, would be just outside the 1 mile. But as
Okay.
Joe mentioned earlier, I think there's going to be a tremendous number of affordable and workforce housing, given the fact that when you transfer TDRs, you have to set aside that 20% number.
I think you know where I'm going with these questions. Okay, all right, thank you very much. That helps a lot.
Come in.
I wanted to thank you and congratulate you and Rick. I appreciate the enormous amount of work that has been done to bring this to this level. It's like planning for a new city, in essence. And I think you've done a fantastic job so far.
Thank you.
I like the setbacks from the buildings, you know.
He's a tough critic here. So far for now. Through tonight, you've done an excellent job.
Tonight, he's.
Do you have any other questions, or just a qualified compliment?
Just qualified.
Okay. All right, anyone else have any questions? And if not, we have a number of cards, and we'll get to them from the public who wishes to be heard. I have H.B. Barr, if you come forward at this lectern, J. Cree Bryant at this other lectern, and behind the two of them, if I could have Ms. Kisner and then Marie Kisner. Sorry, I think Marie Kisner, you had 2 cards, one for A and B, so you can be behind one of them, and Donald Burgess. So why don't you, sir, if you could begin.
Good evening, H.B. Barr. I'm here in support of
Forgive me, sir, if you could just state your name for the record, sir.
Howard B. Barr Jr.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'm here in support of one of the property owners who is concerned about the legacy. I just want the city to consider when you move families, however the developers come, there's a lot of labor and love that has been put into these homes, into these properties. I just ask that you would consider that when you approve, even the development, when you approve, consider what has already been laid there. I am a man of faith, and this faith statement controls every person of any type of faith. There's a historical moment, especially with my Jewish brothers, that says, what do these stones mean? If you can't determine what these stones mean, no history of these stones, you've eliminated their whole life. I believe in development. I do believe in progressiveness, but I also believe that historical legacies must be honored in the best way. So I just ask that you would consider that, because you are actually, I don't care if it's one home, one family, you are uprooting an entire family. Just consider it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You can come forward, please. State your name.
Good evening. My name is Shakri Bryant. I'm here tonight to voice my support of this project.
As a resident of West Palm Beach and also a small business owner, I own a bonding agency, and I have worked with minority contractors, small business enterprises, and also women-owned contractors for the past 20 years. A project of this size in their own backyard will really provide them with an opportunity to get local work. In my line of work, I see that oftentimes these small contractors have to go outside of the county to get work. And because of COVID, work is very slim. So again, working with different outreach partners, ensuring that there is some intentionality to spark awareness to let local contractors know that this work is available will definitely be a benefit for the economy and also, again, to small minority-owned and women-owned businesses. So I'm in full support of the project. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And while you're getting ready, if we could have Adam Gersten at this and Liedenhan Weatherby. All right, ma'am, please proceed.
Good evening, Planning Board. My name is Mamie Kistner. Thank you for allowing us to speak this evening. First of all, people have invested in this neighborhood. Historic Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church, 128 years old, older than the city of West Palm, and the first school for people of color, has invested 53 single-family homes in this community and a $5.5 million community education center, which now has a health center. So when people say in the neighborhood there hasn't been investment, that is incorrect. So I want to correct that first. So there has been investment. This is a hot time for development. I was the only African American on one of the largest projects, and now the second largest project in this city. So I am not opposed to development. I was the only female and African American woman on the Bristol project, over $500 million, and on the related project, One Flagler, getting ready to go up. So I'm not opposed to development, but we are hot in this community now. So this one developer is not the only developer that is looking at us and can redevelop this area. This neighborhood affects one of the largest African American communities, which is the Northwest District. For your information, the Black community is 72.7 in that community, Latinos 11.0, white 10.7, and other 5.2. So it affects the African American community. No one is talking to the full community. They boxed it in to just a few people. When you see 20 participants out of hundreds and thousands of people who will be affected in that community, that's not community engagement. I do community engagement. I had to do that with the Bristol project and with Related. So that's not community engagement when you have thousands of people in the neighborhood. The traffic will not just affect that little box of that district, it will affect the entire Northwest and our communities. And no one's saying anything about the percentages of local minority hiring. Are you talking about 15%, 25%? And we need jobs in that neighborhood. And when you talk about affordable housing, are we talking about affordable housing at $300,000? That's not affordable housing for people who live in those neighborhoods who are being uprooted. So yes, there's a lot to be discussed in community engagement. It is not being done. I am not opposed. But when you do not reach into the community and they're a part of the design of their community that we're going to live, work, and play in, I've got a problem with it. So I cannot condone this kind of project without the community engagement that is needed. Thank you.
All right, sir.
Mr. Chairman and other members of the Planning Board, good evening. I'm Donald Burgess, President and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce of the Palm Beaches. Sir, the Chamber supports the development proposal for the Nora District and consequently the proposed zoning plan amendments. The area north of Quadrille has been neglected for many years. I'm not saying that there hasn't been any investment, but this is a fact that has been highlighted in Styles' presentation. During that time, development of the downtown has been concentrated in a very finite space. There's no doubt that there is a need for development, but we have literally forced ourselves to confine development within a specific radius. The request under consideration tonight, if approved, would allow us to expand that radius. West Palm Beach has responded well to the need for growth and transformation. The proposal for the Nora District should be seen for what it is, an opportunity to add another dimension to our growth as a city. In addition, it will improve our inventory of mixed income housing, as well as accommodate our ever-expanding business environment. The business community supports the proposed development of the Nora District, and we urge this board to approve the zoning plan amendments as presented. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, Adam Gersten, 176 Northwest 24th Street, Miami, 33127. I'm here from Miami, not a place known for good government or smart development necessarily, typically. And I guess it's a little strange that I'm here, but the Venn diagram of my life experience brought me up here. I read an article about this rezone and redevelopment project. Noticed that someone involved, Joe First, someone I knew from the redevelopment and sort of the massaging of the rezone in Wynwood in Miami, which is art district, with a lot of successful planning, in spite of all the egos and deferring sort of value sets of the different developers involved there, because there were a lot of landholders and a lot of stakeholders. I came up here because I also sit on the Planning and Zoning Board of the City of Miami, and I understand a lot of what the thought process that you have to deal with and listening to the public. And I'm also a tavern owner. And so my life and the life of all the people that I employ are affected by these types of decisions. And in Miami, we're begging, and I'm now speaking, just as a resident and a South Florida resident and a fifth generation Floridian, begging for development that includes affordable and workforce housing. And we're having a hard time even getting anything. And what's included in this is spectacular. I'm not paid. I'm not doing any business up here or anything. I just know what I see on a bi-weekly basis sitting there. I know what I deal with. And I also understand that the implication for jobs, I employ 40 people. That's just my one little pizzeria and tavern. These jobs now they start at, $20-something an hour, paid time off, benefits. That's the new world. It's hospitality is a real career. I know that that's a lot of what's going to happen here. The types of creative jobs that happen here, the spectrum of jobs that'll be available in this type of redevelopment are very, very real. I understand the concerns about preservation of families, preservation of culture. Those are things that are really important to me. I love architecture, super passionate about history, Florida history, South Florida history specifically. And also something spectacular about this that I don't see in Miami that we're also lacking is someone coming in and saying, we understand that we have to preserve the architectural vernacular and the soul of those bones of those buildings, commercial, not just residential. Because if you just build a bunch of new mixed-use stuff, that's what people feel. And I know just to wrap it up, but when people come visit places that have historic bones preserved as part of a redevelopment, it absolutely affects how people feel. They want to come back more often. And that's all I have to say, really. Thank you very much.
All right. I earlier called Lydia Weatherby. If you could please, Lydia, I'm so sorry. Lydia Weatherby. And then Bryce Graham. You could come forward behind her. And Carrie Booty and Suzanne Signage on this side. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Lydia Weathersby, and good evening. It's really late. I'm one of I think they called us out. We're one of the lonely ones that there, and no one understands it. When you live there, you'll more understand where you're at. And to come in your home or your neighborhood where you actually live and you grew up at, you can understand it better. And hold on a second, not a few minutes, but my family was the second black family that purchased over there on 11th Street. Very vibrant. My mother was a single mother. She worked hard to get that place. And every day we had the police calling us every day. We had to fight. And it seemed like we're fighting now. My mom's gone. Yes, Mom. She's gone. And it seemed like every day we're fighting. Why? We shouldn't have to do this. And it said affordable. What does that mean, affordable? I don't know what that looks like, smell like, or what have you. But the home is paid for. So why do we have to uproot and go somewhere? It should not be. And everyone can say what they want to say. That's what they want to say, but I'm telling you, years ago we had a mix. Once the people start seeing that we weren't going anywhere, my mom was praying every day, then a lot of people moved out. But we had the Pan American grocery store, we had the Pan American restaurant, we had a lot of places. We used to walk down to Judge Harris' house, get in his pool, if anybody knows Judge Harris, I mean, he may be retired, I don't know where he's at now. Walk down, so we're a couple of blocks from Flagler. And what I would say is a legacy for my children and my family's children. No one can understand the feeling I do. And I start thinking about color purple, but that's crazy. But yet, I do want to say, my mom kept a legacy for us, and that's our legacy, and we will not go. Because it's affordable, and they're going to do all this thing. We got to park all the way to the end on Flagler. We can walk down there. It's a lot of good places and stuff, and it's affordable. Now the natives here in Florida, they're like, ain't no more too many natives anymore because you're being pushed out. You've been pushed out. And someone can say whatever they need to say, but I'm going to tell you that my mom worked hard for that place, and you can't feel it unless you're in it. And you can say your mother or somebody else was there to say their legacy. People can say everything. Yeah, change. True enough. But what about my family? Why can't we have the American dream? Or why can't we live in a nice place, prime land, close to the water? When my mom went over there, like I said, she was the second black person there. Every day we got hounded. But my mom would pray, and we stayed there. We preserved. We went through a lot. I'm a retiree. I'm 59 years old. I've seen a lot in these days. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Ma'am. Sure.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Terry Booty. I'm a resident of downtown 701 South Olive. I'm also a contemporary of Ned and Joe. I stand here in support of the project, but with some caveats. Development is scary. Progress is scary. As African Americans, we understand gentrification, displacement, all of the things that we've experienced in this country. And what I love about these guys is that they're nuanced. They understand what it takes to capitalize a project of this magnitude, but also have the sensitivity to build at a scale that is relatively less harmful than some of our other contemporaries. They have the ability to be nuanced in a way that respects all income levels and ensures that we participate in all aspects of development. And they practice what they preach. And so when this project, and as you think about and contemplate moving this project forward, just understand that you have created an atmosphere of responsible and inclusionary development. And so this is what the future looks like. And this is the type of people that you want to build it within your community. And so with that being said, I hope and encourage all of us to take a step in the right direction and move this project forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sir.
Hi, I'm Bryce Graham, and I want to echo some of the sentiments that have already been stated tonight as a product of the historic district of Palm Beach County, Northwest District, here in West Palm Beach. Number one, the traffic. There's no mention about how the traffic will affect not only the entire district, but the inner city district. And so I also want to raise the point tonight about the community engagement. We'll support development and things of that nature and the upbuilding of the community, but there must be more community engagement. To see 20 people, participants within the project is unacceptable. And so we would like to see more community engagement on that portion.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Susan Steckney. I live at 411 8th Street. I had said this last time, 411 8th Street. The Mandel Library is 411 Clematis Street. It's exactly half a mile if you use your car odometer. So we are considered downtown. This is part of the downtown plan and has been, always has been. It's not the Northwest neighborhood, which, you know, there have been references to the Northwest, and it's just a little small community, Brailsford Park. I own 5 properties, all continuous with one another. I've lived there for 21 years. I'm really happy to see that this development is going to take place. It's going to be a comprehensive plan. Who could beat that, you know, rather than just 38% empty lots. You know, you could have one person doing whatever on each different lot, but this is going to be comprehensive and thorough. So I don't know what else to say. In the 21 years that I've lived there, there has been not one developer that has come in and built one house. Not one. All the properties that are there have been there for a while. So my whole block is looking forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Can we hear from Pamela Reedus, Rhonda Bennett at this podium, and at the other podium, Reginald Hill, excuse me, Reginald, or maybe Reginald and Regine, I think they're both. If you'll be at that podium. Ma'am, if you could proceed, please.
Hi, yes, my name is Pamela Reedus, and I reside at 1212 Madeira Court. I am 5th generation, 100 feet from the problem, the bridge, and I've seen a lot, heard a lot, and I am supportive of this project. I believe it can outreach the other neighborhoods. Change needs to be done. It's a area that has been overlooked for years, and I strongly believe that it will look nice after they come in and do what they have to do. I also have a letter from my daughter that also lives with me. I would want, if somebody could read it for everybody. I don't really, because I might find corrections.
You can give it to the clerk, and
Okay.
she'll be, if it's not too lengthy, she'll be happy to read it for you.
Okay, this is from my daughter that also is the 5th generation that resides at the home as well.
Hope, I think you have someone who wants you to take some cards there on your right.
Thank you.
Okay, you can pass that. If you don't mind reading the letter, and ma'am, are you done with your comments?
Yes, I'm just, I'm just.
Okay, we'll read those comments when you're done.
Okay.
Okay, are you finished then?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. All right, and Hope, will you read those comments in the record right now?
I'm a young black woman who has lived back in this neighborhood for 10 years. Prior to that, this house was my great-great-grandmother's house. I truly want this project to happen. Unfortunately, it seems like there's false narrative being portrayed. NDT Place projects have been nothing but nice, patient and willing with everyone in the neighborhood. This fabrication of blacks being pushed out is a lie. In the last 10 years that I have lived here, every black person that has done so willingly. Honestly, there has only been 2 black homeowners in my immediate area that has been sold to these specific investors in the last year and was eager to do so. At first, I was like a few of my neighbors not wanting to sell just to anyone. However, the Nora project is a benefit to West Palm Beach as a whole. NDT Place project showed us a vision. The prior investors before them had no vision. They had just brought up the property and left it there. We have people giving opinions about an area that isn't directly affecting them. Most are just visitors to this area, but for me, this is home. It is a lot going on, and I understand the sentimental value of one's home just as well as my home is to me and my family. However, the false narrative that these people aren't willing to talk to us is false. You can't be willing to talk to people that aren't willing to listen and have their mind made up from the start. If these black investors coming in here, the race card wouldn't be an option and less voice about the whole project as a whole. I'm for the project after several attempts of NDT Place projects trying to reach out and answer any questions I may have. I hate that I may not get the same environment elsewhere, somewhere else, because if you know about the under the bridge, it is a different world. However, with the young spirit in me, I love change, and since I have an idea of what's to come, why would I not want this project that can benefit us all? Sincerely, Rhonda Bennett.
Thank you so much. Sir, if you can go forward, state your name for the record.
My name is Reginald Hill. I grew up in the Pleasant City area, which is north of the location everyone seems to be concerned about today. I was also a paper boy in my younger days, and I delivered in this neighborhood, and there was maybe 3, 4 max black families. That neighborhood has always been predominantly white. And I support the project. I spent 2 hours there today. I drove around, I looked, and it really needs a facelift. And I support it wholeheartedly. And I hope you all get on the bandwagon and support it with me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, if you come forward.
Good evening. My name is Regine Hill, daughter of Reginald Hill. I am in support of the Nora District project development. As a millennium, I find that it's very important that we have like places like this to go to broaden our horizons. A lot of us are business owners, entrepreneurs. Right now, a lot of us are going through the online process of selling our products, goods, and services, where a situation like this will be perfect for us to have a storefront, have the opportunity to hang out with friends and connect and network in our own community. As an individual who likes to travel, I'd rather spend my money in my own city rather than going down south and going to a district like this down in Wynwood. So, thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, did I call Rhonda Bennett before? I did, thank you. I'm so sorry. Charisma Adams and Michael Odom, Benjamin Carroll, and Jennifer Reed. 2 and 2, please.
Good evening, members of the Planning Board. I just wanted to...
If you could kindly state your name for us.
Sure, absolutely. My name is Charisma Adams, 523 Northwood. I just want to come up and bring a little clarity to community outreach. I actually own the firm that has been engaged in providing community outreach for this particular project. Every firm has a strategy that they use to conduct community outreach services. We started in the immediate footprint of the project. There's a plan to go all the way out citywide. Typically, we don't do outreach during the holidays because we know it's hard to get people to attend. So after the holidays, we have a plan to continue to expand outreach. We've already spoken to business owners outside of the direct footprint of the project. We've had numerous coffee meetings, in-person meetings in NDT's office, telephone calls all throughout the city of West Palm Beach. That is how we got so many letters of support, as well as individuals who are planning to engage in additional activities. There was a meeting in September, there had 20 attendees, but again, that is early on in the project. The reason that Innovative Bonding Services was here this evening because they have been contacted because there has been a commitment to minority, small, and women-owned enterprises participating in the development of this project. And so that conversation was there so that the individuals can be ready when the opportunities arise. We haven't yet carved out the exact percentages because we're not that far down in the project to look at site plan and the capacity of those businesses specifically in West Palm Beach. I provide these services to multiple developments in the city of West Palm Beach, including Anchor Site, Flagler Towers, and other projects that have come before this board. So I just wanted to bring a little clarity to the statement that community outreach throughout the city of West Palm Beach has not been taking place because that is not true, and it has, and I have the firm that has been providing those services. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
No more. Good evening. My name is Michael Odom, 1446 North Magonia Circle. I'm a native Floridian, but most importantly, grown and raised in Pleasant City, the neighborhood that's immediately north of the NOAA project, and I was there in the 60s, 70s, 80s, up into the 90s when I moved over to Roosevelt Estates, but I'm still in the district. I still work in the area in Pleasant City. So I actually support this project. When NDT came to me and asked me about the area and the project, if I would participate in that community engagement, which I would be doing with Ms. Adams, I saw it as a perfect opportunity to actually fill a gap. Because I understand development. I also served on the mayor's racial equity housing subcommittee. And when I look at the connectivity between Rosemary Square, Clematis, Northwood, down Broadway, and to Port, actually at Riviera Beach, there's a gap. And that gap is right in that proposed site where NORA is going to be developing. So I see it as a tremendous economic impact for our city, job opportunities. And as we go forward with the community engagement process, I'm hoping that we can work with it from beginning to end, not just with after we're done with the planning, after we're done with the commission, but also throughout the full project when it's developed, when we start looking at businesses, when we start looking at all the amenities that could be given to this project. But I really, really feel that it's going to be a really great economic impact to the city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, Benjamin Carroll, you could come forward. Jennifer Reed, are you still here? If you could come forward as well, ma'am, maybe the other lectern. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Benjamin Carroll. I live in 33 Annie Lane in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I pastor the Greater Antioch Baptist Church in Pleasant City on Spruce, and I was introduced to this project probably 2 or 3 years ago. Charisma Adams had spoken to my wife about it. I was away on active duty. I've been a part of this community, in and out of it, since 1988 or so. I'm an Army reservist, and so I used to work over off of 3181 Gun Club Road, and I became the pastor of Greater Antioch 16 years ago. In that time, I've watched the developments happen, such as Mary's Place across the street from our church. I've seen the Northwood area be improved, and I've watched the downtown area continue to grow. One of the things that I see is young men languishing in the streets and drug abuse. I've watched and I've driven through that area and seen nothing really happening in it. I shared with someone that there are several pockets of homelessness, and then I've noticed that under the bridge has become more populated now than it was in the past. So these things I know. I've seen in my lifetime, because I've lived in several states, Atlanta. I've seen development. I've seen development in Oakland, California, where I finished high school. I've seen development in Savannah, Georgia, where I was on active duty. I've seen development in Paterson, New Jersey, where I lived for several months. And so I understand what's happening. I sat with the gentleman that's a part of the NORA project on yesterday, and I said to him before I asked my questions, I don't want to be involved in the rape of the lock. Alexander Pope wrote a poem where a young lady's hair was taken from her without her knowledge. What I have seen of NORA is that they are engaged and willing to have conversation and direct conversation about what's taking place. I was very pleased to hear about the opportunities for jobs. I was very, very pleased to hear that there was a sensitivity for individuals to be able to live in that space that from various walks of life. And so I support this, and our congregation supports this plan for the future development of downtown West Palm Beach and the residents of this city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And after Ms. Reed, if we could have, I think the last card I have is Barbara Studeville, something like that. If that person could come to this lectern. Ma'am, go ahead, please.
Good evening, Planning Committee. I'm not feeling well today.
If you could, ma'am, kindly state your name for the record.
Okay,
too.
my name is Jennifer Reed.
Yes, thank you.
Good evening to the planning committee. I was just saying I wasn't feeling that well, but I wanted to get up. I wasn't gonna say anything. I'm up at every meeting, but when individuals are pointing out one family, whatever, let me read this. I am expressing my opposition to the rezoning of the Bedford Park neighborhood. My concern is for the residents and of the Bedford Park and the surrounding areas. I proposed the height density. I did speak to someone in the rezoning. I didn't understand it. Sometimes you need someone to break it down so you can understand it. I have a college degree, but not in development, so you don't know. And the owners who own the properties over there, they are renting. They're not living there. They don't live there. They never lived there. And the part about when they said, oh, they've been there before, my mom was there since the 60s. There's nobody in here been there longer than us. And yeah, it's one family, but we will fight as a family. And I am the baby out of 11. And if I wanted to bring all my nieces and nephews, it's 58 of them. But I didn't. I don't have to do that because I'm sincere and I'm honest. And we're not against change. I said that at every meeting. We're not against change. But what I want, the people that are speaking, like I said, they don't live in the community. They outside looking in. They're outside looking in. What about my preserving my mother's legacy? The trees. We are native of the city of West Palm Beach. A lot of them are not natives. We're natives here, and we love West Palm. I'm not going anywhere. If I do go somewhere, it's gonna still be in West Palm Beach, and that's who's gonna get the taxes. The proposed, it should benefit the entire community and the surrounding communities. I was Pleasant City. One man spoke about Pleasant City. I remember a little girl, I broke my collarbone in Pleasant City. So I know about the whole area, the entire area, even though I'm just 27.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I hope that the NORA project don't come at the expense of African Americans and other minority landowners. Only thing I ask you is to save our neighborhood from massive traffic, our trees from being destroyed. Because like I said at the downtown action meeting, we have 2 massive mango trees. They give out 5,000 mangoes. Also, our homes from losing the family structure. I can only ask you to do what's right for everyone involved. And I'm not against change, and I'm not against speaking to someone, but a lot of people will get up here and say stuff that's not true.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate
Thank
your
you.
comments. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak, who has not spoken? Please come forward. Have you submitted a card yet?
Yeah, I think I did. I think
I'm
mine
sure
it's in
someone in
purple.
the stack.
I
Go
think it's
ahead,
in
sir.
purple. I think it's just my penmanship needs to be a little
That's
better.
fine. Go ahead.
First, I want to thank everybody. My name is Darren Stutstill. I'm at 401 North Rosemary. Thank you all for your service, and thank you for everybody who came out this evening. I had what I wanted to say, but I'm going to throw that away and just point out some points. My family owns a small shopping center on 3rd and Rosemary, right there. They've been there for 50 years. We bought it from a family that was there in 1925. So the property has been there. I've served on many communities, advisory committees, the Lambert, the Stullen Lee. I was just on the equity team and all that to make sure that African Americans have a part in the city. About 10 years when I first started on the Lambert Advisory Committee, the thing was we got to get the city open for business. It was suffering, economic changes was happening, and we were suffering. The city had a cold. In my neighborhoods, when the city has a cold, my neighborhood has the flu. I had 7 storefronts. Every day I was coming to those storefronts and they was beat up. I had open lots around me and it was just drastic. Since that time, and things have improved, now I'm 100% full, 80% African American owners who's given jobs in my community and open the gates so conversations can happen to make sure that when things increase, that we lift also, which is my community. I am for Pleasant City, Coleman Park, Northwest, and majority African-American neighborhoods. For this reason here, I'm also a school teacher during the day. And when you have kids, their parents cannot find local jobs that's in their neighborhood who has to come from 10 miles away, it affects the economic stability of that family. So I see the economic impacts. One thing I want to raise, and that's why I love being a business owner, is because in my neighborhood, small businesses hire from that neighborhood, 70 to 80%. So yes, I want to see small black businesses in my neighborhood. How does that happen? It has to be disposable income to support that. Now, I don't want anybody displaced. I've seen a lot of rezoning around our property. But at the same time, if we have businesses, if we have families, and if we don't have sustainability, then we have negative outcomes. That's what I want to change. That's why I come to these meetings, because I wanted to change. Now, you guys have a tough job. Your job is to make reasonable planning, I would like to say, for progress for all. At the end of the day, progress for all. That's why I open my doors every day. So I'm asking you all, and I'm going to finish with this. If this makes sense and it's for progress for all, then yes, it should be passed, and we should move forward. And I will make sure that my community is included. I don't have all the answers, but at the same time, I do not want to see what's happened 10 years ago when we were left out. Thank you for your time.
All right, is there anyone else who wishes to be heard who has not been heard on this matter? And if not, I would like to call someone from the staff, because I just want to clarify one point. I know who's around, who's available. Nothing we're voting on today will affect these people's rights to stay in their home. Is that correct? I mean, is that a private matter between the developer and them?
That's correct.
So I want to be very clear here. How we vote here today is not voting to have you removed from your home. Okay? It has whether this project moves forward or not. You have property rights. People can advise you on your rights, but that's not what's before us here today. So I just want to clarify that to make sure I didn't understand it incorrectly. All right, any other questions? Oh, please.
I just want to clarify. I know what it is, but I think the room needs to clarify the definition of what workforce housing is, what that means, what the AMI is, because I know it was explained once, but I don't think it's getting across. It doesn't mean what the developer thinks is affordable or what we think is affordable. There's an actual calculation that goes into place, and there's very specifics, and there's people working in this community.
So when someone had commented, it's 300,000 affordable housing, your point is actually an objective
And there's a
test.
calculation, and I just want that to be clarified, because it's not their definition of affordable housing. This is a standard that is upheld as workforce housing, not affordable.
Yes, sure. The program that was referenced earlier today, it's a program that was adopted by the city actually a couple of months ago that basically requires any project taking advantage of an incentive program like the north part of the Nora district will do, so that increase the development capacity through the transfer of development rights will be required to basically set aside 20% of the square footage and convert that into units for what is called affordable housing. In that case, the affordable housing limits that we are proposing are anything between 60 to 100% of the area median income. The area median income in the county right now is $80,200. That's the 2021 area median income. So the houses or the residential units offered within that will have to be 25% of the units at 60% of the AMI, 25% of the units at 80% of the AMI, and the remaining 50% will be up to 50%, up to 100% of the AMI.
Thank you for that. I do have a question for Mr. First, if you come forward as well. I'm trying to reconcile things you have said and things I've heard. On the one hand, you've said you have almost unanimous support within this neighborhood, and you gave us a map and you showed the green things. And then we're hearing from other people who are saying, no, many of the people who live there are against this. I'm trying to reconcile the two statements. Can you help me?
Right, so let me just add to that quickly, because I think you'll find it of interest. So the actual rental prices on a monthly basis under the affordable program and I don't have this verbatim, but for one-bedroom units, it's about $930 is the 60% ratio, I believe, Anna Maria, and if you want to opine on that, please do. Then as you get to the largest of those, which would be 3-bedroom units, I think it's in the 1,800 range. So when we're talking about the 60%, you're typically talking about units that are below $1,000 a month, which is based on the county AMI standards, is a fair, affordable rent. So I just wanted to give an actual numerical value to that. In terms of the opposition, everybody that you heard today is all related to one single family home, 433 11th Street. I was going to clarify, I will never make a misstatement on the dais here. The family members were all related to that. There are other individuals that are within the community, such as the women there that just made the comment, that also have various forms of opposition to the project. Just in particular, those two components of opposition that I heard were one related to affordability, suggesting that affordable was $300,000 condos, which obviously that's not the case under the incentive program, and then the hiring of minority workforce. Just to add a little bit more color to that, for those of you that don't know, the CRA is an active participant in this project. There's a tax increment financing deal that we had the term sheet approved by the CRA board last month. That term sheet requires us to work with and engage minority-owned businesses and minorities to execute the construction project that we have on our hands, which is a $17+ million infrastructure improvement project. So just so you know the actual facts, that's already a requirement. Clearly, we're working with community leaders that are very much engaged in the historic Northwest community to ensure that we go above and beyond that requirement. So I wanted to set the record straight on that because that is already a requirement within our project as it relates to our arrangement with the Community Redevelopment Agency.
Thank you. Anyone have any question about the staff or the developer?
Can I ask one more question of staff? Just for clarification, in terms of, because we talked a little bit before about the TDR benefit, do those property owners have to be in the core of the area, or can they be anywhere within the area?
No, for the legacy program, they have to be in what is the boundaries of the legacy project. That is the area that wants to be preserved. So it's south of 10th Street and up to this alley that goes south of 8th.
Okay. And so if I don't know the area well enough, if somebody owned a home outside of the legacy area and wanted to keep their home, they would not receive that TDR benefit that they could put out on the market?
No, yes, that's correct. They will not.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, any other questions of staff? And if not, I'll bring it back to the board for discussion. Let me start with you, Carla. We'll just go down the row here real quickly. What are your thoughts, impressions?
Yes, I did want to make a couple of comments. First of all, I actually do like the project. I want to make that clear. I didn't make that clear in last month's meeting. It's it reminds me of Bethesda, Maryland. I think the challenge that the surrounding African-American neighborhood has is one of process. If you think about how City Place, for example, was pulled together, or Grandview Heights, even the downtown area, the direct communities that were impacted and the surrounding communities were brought together, design charrettes were done. Developers weren't chosen immediately. Even with City Place, there were 3 of them that were bidding for City Place. And so there was a feeling of not just those who were directly impacted, like with the City Place was uptown, downtown project, but those in the surrounding areas who also were going to be impacted were engaged. And so I want to kind of get to your question of why there's this discrepancy between, oh, we have agreement or there's disagreement. And so I think that's part of the challenge that you're facing with this particular project, because you have an African American community that's a first community. A lot of those folks off of 7th and Clear Lake and all of that are first-time homeowners, and that's my neighborhood. So I'm hearing from them as well. And I can understand why there's a feeling of not being engaged, because that neighborhood will be impacted because 7th Street is a cut-through, area. So I understand your side too, because you're saying, hey, we're, building out this parcel here. We've, got 90% of the folks, 95% of the folks in agreement. But for this area, we are not in Miami. We are West Palm Beach. The surrounding areas want to be at least engaged and brought in and discussed. It's also is a little unusual, and I've been involved in a lot of development projects in this town over the last 30 years, and this is my second stint on the planning board. It is actually a little unusual for a parcel to be so, for what I call a first-time parcel, to be so driven by a developer. Usually, we have a design charrette, we meet with the city, we say we want Grandview Heights, we want an industrial area, and then we, make various bids to developers or put out RFPs or that kind of thing. So I think there's some nervousness, as well, regarding the fact that this is so development-driven. I will say, though, that in the last month, I think there has been a lot more community outreach, with this project. I do think that there is a desire to engage the minority community in terms of business opportunities, and I hope that continues. And I think that that will help you with this project going forward. I also would strongly urge and recommend that you engage the surrounding communities, that you directly engage Tabernacle. You gotta get the churches involved, because they will help support you with this project going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Well, as nice as the presentation was from NDT, I really haven't even been thinking about your project, because really this is a part of our city that, hasn't been lifted in the same way as the rest of our city. And this is what we like to see. We like to see a plan and a vision of how we're going to get from point A to point B. And that's what's before us today, is how are we going to put a regulatory framework in place that might allow your project to happen, or someone else's project, or whoever's project, right? The rules that are in place right now aren't working for us, and that's why it hasn't lifted up. And so we have to change the rules and tweak the rules to incentivize it and to make it better. And so that's really what's before us. We're not being asked to condemn property or boot people out or approve a specific development plan, just putting the regulatory framework in place. I think the idea of allowing for the TDR benefit to transfer within the area that provides an immediate marketable asset for people who own property in the area is brilliant. I hope that's really a real thing and not an illusory thing. I feel that affordable housing is something that we all want to see happen, but we don't actually see it materialize enough. It's like we keep putting it in regulations, but it doesn't really show up as much as we'd like to see. So I hope that part does materialize, because this is a dynamite location for that to happen. And we truly want to see that happen, because all we're seeing is like unaffordable housing projects here in front of this board lately. Right. So I think that the staff has done a fantastic job of putting a regulatory program in place that's going to create the opportunity for something great to happen, whether it's your project or someone else's project. And that's excites me. That's a plan, that's a vision, and I can get behind that.
Andre?
I think the project looks fantastic. I've had the experience of driving in that area a few years ago when we were doing a street tree assessment of the city in that area, and I had never seen that area before, and I thought to myself, what an incredible opportunity, and what a really a gold mine. I mean, to have that much vacancy in the city of West Palm Beach, that close to City Place and downtown, is just, it's just asking for it. I think it totally needs a development like this, and to have this land available to you. And I think it's an opportunity for the community to take advantage of and get involved and try and, be a part of it and not just watch it happen. So
I think this is probably one of the most difficult projects to see because of that. That element of, hey, you're in our area, you're in our land, so see you later. That's tough. That's tough to grapple with, but I do think this is something that the community and the city should really all rally towards, because I think it's an incredible opportunity for everybody involved.
Thank you, Peter.
I think it's a great plan. As I said earlier, I think the staff has done a terrific job. And it's very unusual to have the central portion of this whole development stay as is, preserved. The bigger developments are going to occur on the perimeter and closer to Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard. So I think it's a great plan, and I wish success for the community.
Thank you. Deborah?
Okay, let me start off by saying I am a native Floridian, and I've been in West Palm Beach for over 60 years. And so I have seen this area, and moving north towards where the bridge is, it was a bustling community. And for African Americans, we had a totally intact community. We did not have to leave our community for anything. We had entrepreneurs, we had owners of businesses. Anything you can think of, we had it. And we did not have to go outside of our area for that. We know that the Pleasant City area, which is a prized historic area, of course it was developed after the sticks, after their homes were burned, was just phenomenal with the type of ventures, the type of activities. Anything you can think of, I'm telling you, from education, people who developed open air schools when other schools were not available to us. We had the first grocery store chain by the Robinson family. We had doctors. We had hospitals. We had the kind of connection in this community where property was so important. And so, as we've watched over the years, the decline, some of that decline, a lot of that decline has been intentional as far as it remaining as it was. And just to see the gradual blight, it's like pouring out a cup of water and watching the water flow. And you can just see the intentional neglect. There have been so many times when property owners tried to renovate, to upgrade, and ran into roadblocks. The opportunities were not there. I remember when the bridge was put in, and it was put in for a specific reason. And you could see as people were traveling on what is now Palm Beach Lakes, that was 12th Street, they didn't necessarily want to drive through that part of the community. And of course, that area under the bridge over the years has become worse with the type of activities that have happened under there, but it could have been improved a long time ago. So when the area gets to a point where people cannot, or they don't see light down the tunnel to maintain their homes, to renovate them, to make that area constantly livable and admired and respected and protected, then you see people slowly move out. So the majority of the people who are there now who were, or maybe who are part of this 20 people, I thought that was just abominable. The wider community needs to be a part of the charrette. You have owners who have really no connection to this historic area, who never lived here, don't live here on a full-time basis. And so your renters are your itinerant people who don't have a connection to the strong history here. And so here, if you've seen other cities, and we've seen it here, this is the process of gentrification. This is the process of displacement, people being uprooted, and of course, we've seen redlining for the history that we have been here in West Palm Beach. The plan looks good. It looks good on paper. But where are the people? Where are we? Where am I in that? Where are the jobs? Where's the opportunity for minority businesses to come in and actually be a part of this? So we saw what happened from 2nd Street to 3rd Street. And of course, some of the owners held on. We do need development. I am not opposed to development. But the way it's done, it kind of turns people away from even coming to meetings like this. So if there are going to be more, if there's going to be more community engagement, you have to involve the larger community. Let me tell you that the African American community went as far as Iris and Jasmine from Tamarind. And then coming north, our community went to Rosemary. Now keep in mind, you had Rosemary for blacks, you had Florida Avenue for whites. The same street, just divided by 2 different names. And our community continued north past 23rd Street, from Tamarind all the way over east. And so here you have so much history mixed in here that right on that Tamarind corridor, many of the churches were first founded. Many of the homes were built there. And then we were slowly moved out. So we've had an investment in this whole community. The CRA has a different definition for the Northwest community. We know what the historic Northwest community is and how far it runs from south to north. And we want to preserve what we have. Many of us who are first-time homeowners, we call ourselves the legacy owners for legacy property. And it's always a struggle for many families to try to hold on to those properties. If they're going to be outside of the TDR area, they won't have that opportunity to take advantage of those funds to improve their properties. And so they end up losing out. Yeah, we do need a change. It doesn't need to continue to look like that. It should not have been allowed to get to that place where it is. But you've had investment in these areas, so we can't knock that investment that has come in. We have to give props, especially to Tabernacle Baptist Church, for all of the work that they've done. We have to give props to the African American owners who have come in and said, okay, I'm not going to let this go down. But they needed help, and the help wasn't there sometimes. So that invitation to the table to get this project done needs to be extended to the broader community. If we're not at the table, we don't have a voice. And so and I'm sure this project is going to go forward, but when you look at all the, the gray areas and the green areas, you look at who those homeowners are now, who have, said yes. And yes, we are in favor of development. We are in favor of growth. But where are we going to be if it continues in this particular vein? That's it.
Thank you. Kat?
When looking at this, and I kind of take it from the perspective of, I don't think it's the responsibility of the government to drive necessarily development. They're guiding it. There's a developer here who amassed land, was trying to find a way to smartly grow and revitalize this area. And our government has come in to say, hey, if we're going to do it, let's do it right. And let's incentivize and let's push for workforce housing and figure out a way to make a plan that works for our community, instead of, I think what the fear is historically that positive term for white people of gentrification left out the fact that African American communities were pushed out. And so while youthful people were coming in and that gentrification word sounded nice, there was a negative aspect to that. And I think we are learning and we are growing in saying that gentrification is not necessarily a great thing. Let's try to figure out a way to make sure that those who want to stay in the community can stay. And I've seen other programs from the city, whether it's if you want to add things to your house, if you, different programs and incentives for those affordable level of income. And I think that that aspect of engagement can continue and to work and say, hey, if someone wants to stay in their home, let's figure out a way to do it, because I don't want that fear of you guys saying, hey, someone's trying to kick me out, overweigh the positive impacts that this entire project could potentially have on your entire community. And I think that that's what's the hang up is people are coming in and that means that I'm being pushed out. But I can't see that here. I can't justify that that is actually what's going to happen. But I do agree that 20 people at a meeting doesn't, that's not necessarily on the positive side of things, and you need to continue. Northwest, the historic district, is not that necessary neighborhood, but if something was going on in Pleasant City, a member of Old Northwood or Northwood Gardens would want to know about what was going on there and want to be included, and I think the same goes for the Historic Northwest, their adjacent neighbors. So I do think making sure that they're part of the conversation, that they're at the table continuing forward is important. And these notices go out timely, that they're broad, and that if people respond saying, hey, that doesn't work for me, that the city tries to figure out a way to manage that aspect or have a conversation. And I think I've heard both sides of that coin tonight. So I don't see a reason not to move forward with this, given everything I've heard tonight, knowing that I don't see how this drives people out of the community. I think it makes them, it gives them an opportunity to stay and be proud of what's surrounding them. Last time we heard this, I went and drove at night through that area just to make sure that I was understanding what does this look like, because I don't spend all my time there. I've passed through it sometimes when there's traffic and things like that, but I don't spend a majority of my time. I live in Northwood, I'm right nearby. And I think looking at a picture looks different than when you're obviously there looking at it around and weighing it. I don't see why we can't move forward knowing that, hey, everyone's saying here, make sure you're continuing talking with everybody that's in this community, not just the few people that still live there, but those around, because it's important. That's all.
Thank you.
Well, I'm in kind of violent agreement with John and the way you looked at this, which is trying to focus on what we're being asked to look at today. Not that all of the other issues that are being discussed aren't incredibly important, but what's before us today is the city coming to us with a plan to rezone this area to permit this type of development. Again, it happens in this case that there's a developer kind of who has, and I don't know the history, but maybe even had approached the city, has kind of jointly come with the city, and they shouldn't be penalized by virtue of the fact that they kind of maybe came to the city and have done it jointly. If anything, they should be applauded for that rather than kind of buying up property without having that ongoing discussion with the city. So I kind of think if you just limit what we're looking at tonight to that, I think, as I said last time, I think I think it's a great project and I'm completely in support of it. And to the point about workforce housing, as I understand it, because I think that is a concern as to whether this affordable housing will actually materialize. Like, as I understand it, the way this is almost purpose-built by the city and the developer, frankly, it has to exist within this district based on the way that the project and the transfers of these assets work. So that's how I feel.
I want to make these observations. I don't know how many years you and I have served on this board together, but I think you spoke more tonight than you have all the other meetings combined. And I hope you speak out more. I always learn when you do. I have a slightly different perspective than some, because I lived for over 30 years just 2 blocks from this area. I'm very familiar with it. I have, like many, so wish that that community had benefited like so many other communities in our city with investment and growth. It didn't seem to have it. It didn't seem to enjoy it. Investors seemed to pass it by. And that's why I was so enthusiastic when I first learned about this project. I understand that the dialogue needs to expand beyond the neighborhood, but we need to be mindful of the people who actually own these properties. All but 1 or 2 are very supportive of it. So I don't know how we can just ignore that too. If we're saying it's not good for the community, let's be mindful what that community is, and it's the people who own the property there. That's a big part of the community too. And they are, with few exceptions, very supportive of this. And I think, to be against a project that otherwise sounds good because we sense communities against it, when in fact the people who live in the community are in support of it, I'm lost somewhere in that logic. But you're talking about $40 to $50 million of immediate investment in an area that is starved for investment. We're talking about up to maybe $500 million of investment. And much of the investment is going to be done on the vacant part of this neighborhood. These empty lots, that's where the building's going to be taking place. And the core part, where the single-family homes have survived, that's going to greatly benefit by all the investment around it. So I'm hoping it's going to be, really positive. I just want to be clear to the family here who spoke very eloquently about not losing their home. There's nothing we're voting on today that takes away your home. This is a private matter between a developer and a homeowner. And hopefully we'll be able to work it out if it can't. But that's not what we're here voting on. We're not condoning or allowing it. We're moving forward on a different vision. I'm very enthusiastic for this. Like I said, you have to live the place as many years as I have so close to it and watch year after year after year how it has missed out on all the growth and prosperity of the city. And that's finally changing, and I think it's a wonderful thing. So my vote will be an enthusiastic one. Any other things? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll move approval, Mr. Chairman, of Palm Beach Planning Board case number 1899A. I want to make sure I got the right number this time. Based upon the findings that the proposed amendment complies with all the amendment standards found in Section 94-32 of the Zoning and Land Development Regulations.
All right, we have a motion. Have we a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
I'll move approval of case number 1899B, based upon the findings that the proposed amendment complies with all the amendment standards found in Section 94-32 of the Zoning and Land Development Regulations.
Motion, have we a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? It passes unanimously. All right, then we move to other business, unfinished business, new business. Angela, you're about to say something.
Chair, we need to have our organizational meeting, but since it's late, I'll put it on the agenda for December. So we need to vote time of year, new chair, vice chair, same chair, same vice chair. So I'll put it on the agenda for December.
Sounds like a plan. All righty, well, thank you. We stand adjourned.